Good morning. And a good morning it is. It is Monday, February 10th, 2020. Can you believe it? It is 43 degrees, getting up to 45 today. We'll be back with the weather in just a little bit. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your train station studio, or if you will, your radio station at the train station. We'll be back with the weather. It's mostly rain, by the way, today and tomorrow. We'll get to it in a little bit. Our top story this morning, New Rochelle police say they're reporting multiple shootings here in town in the last 24 hours. We will tell you about it. The Blessed Sacrament redevelopment here in New Rochelle is inching forward at last. Millions of dollars being spent. David Tubliolo's party switch, welcomed by Democrats, slammed by the Republican boss, frankly, as well it should have been. And in Yonkers, a police officer there is arrested after selling stolen goods on eBay. And a reminder, Hezi Harris will be with us in the 8 o'clock hour today. He'll be talking about that. And he'll also be talking about what's going on in Mount Vernon. First, let's take a look at the weather. Once again, welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. And as you know, the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit UHGC.com. It is 43 cloudy with periods of light rain. The temperature will get up to 46, 47 today. Imagine if this were snow, but you don't have to worry about it because it's not. In fact, yesterday in the Arctic, they reached the highest temperature ever recorded. It was 66 degrees. Just throwing that at you. Tonight, cloudy skies. The temperature will be 40 degrees. The wind out of the southwest, 5-10 miles an hour. Again, some rain mixed in with those clouds. And again, tomorrow, cloudy skies. The temperature 46. The wind out of the northeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. As we go into Wednesday, at last sunshine, followed by increasing clouds. The high will be 43. And on Thursday, periods of snow. Oh no, but it'll change to rain. Why? 50 degrees, that's the target temperature for the day. The overnight low will be 24 degrees. As we get on into Friday, mostly sunny skies. The high will be 30, so it'll get cold again as we get to Friday. Welcome to the program. We started at 6:30 today. See how this time works out for you as we get all this solid. Now, again, we have construction going on. We don't know the extent of it today, but we're going ahead with our broadcast rather than do it remotely. We want to see just how far along we can go. And if you're wondering, you saw this. I cut my finger this morning. Trying to cut something. All righty. Just a little bit of blood. I will be fine. Anyway, welcome to the program. I am Bob Marrone. Remember now, you can listen to us on RadioWestchester.com. You can go to MyTuner Radio. And click on the Mornings with Bob Marrone, or you can click on RadioWestchester.com. We're also available, and I'm looking at you now. Let's look at the pictures, okay? At YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, iTunes, and iHeartRadios. Let's get to those stories that we talk about today. Our top stories. The New Rochelle police responded to shots fired in 3 different spots in the city that's here in New Rochelle in the last 24 hours. This in LoHub. The most recent reports of shots fired happened Saturday night in the area of Lincoln Avenue. Police didn't have any immediate information about what happened or if anyone was hit. Now, on 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon, a civilian flagged down a police officer on May Street to report shots fired in that area. Police didn't have an exact location, but responding officers spoke to 2 people who said they were the targets. Officers chased a suspected shooter into a building in the area, but lost him, according to police. No information about an arrest late Saturday was available. Now, the first shooting goes back to Friday night. This around 8:19 in the Heritage Homes. 2 people were shot and taken to Jacoby Medical Center. 1 male was shot in the arm and a female was shot in the hand, according to police. The injuries are not considered to be life-threatening. As we get more information, so too will you. And remember, we'll be meeting with Bob Cox today at 9 o'clock. We'll see what he knows about some of those shootings. He, New Rochelle's top reporter. Blessed Sacraments in the news. This in News 12, or rather LOHUD today. The redevelopment of the Blessed Sacrament School in downtown New Rochelle may be commencing soon. Developer Mill Creek Residential Trust has closed on the 2-acre parcel abutting the Center and Maple Avenues, where it intends to erect an 8-story residential building with a new parish center. Plans for the development, known as the Madeira, will preserve the outdoor space fronting Leroy Place. The second floor of the proposed redevelopment will include a fitness center and a total of 334 apartments. As required by the New Rochelle Industrial Development Authority, 10% of those units, that's 34 apartments, will be set aside for affordable housing. The site is also 1 block from the 360 Huguenot rental development by real estate firm RXR. That's 360 Huguenot, and it is the first rental development to begin leasing in New Rochelle after the rezoning of the city's downtown. In 2015, it is 6:38. Westchester County Legislator David Tubiolo changed his voting registration, from Republican to Democrat. He did that on Friday, and we reported it here. It's in LOHUD today, though. The update on that story, he filled out his new registration form at a news conference at Democratic headquarters, and he urged others to switch before the February 14th deadline to vote in the presidential primary. He says, quote, "You get off the sidelines and help make the changes we need in this pivotal moment in history." Now, the 32-year-old said he hadn't chosen which Democratic presidential candidate to support, but will be voting against Republican Donald Trump, whose polarizing presidency, he says, was cited as one of the reasons he left the GOP. Democrats now hold a 16-1 majority. Now, Tubiolo's father is chairman of the Yonkers Republican Committee, and his mother holds a high-ranking post in the county party. But he flirted with the idea of switching parties not long after taking office in 2016. He made the plans to switch in an exclusive interview that he actually gave to the Journal News. It is 6:40. This story out of Yonkers today on LOHUD, whatever it is, you can get it on eBay, even if it technically belongs to the city of Yonkers. That's the way they frame the story in LOHUD. Good for them. A Yonkers police officer has been arrested on grand larceny charges for allegedly stealing department property and selling it online. Christian Carrasco, 41, was arraigned today in Yonkers, or rather Friday, in Yonkers Criminal Court on 3 charges of grand larceny after he turned himself in. The department was notified early this year that police equipment was listed for sale on online retail sites. The Yonkers Police Department said a spokesperson holds itself to the highest standards of professionalism, accountability, and transparency. That, of course, John Mueller. Carrasco, a 16-year veteran, is suspended without pay, pending termination. Hezi Ira should have a lot to say about that at 8:20 today. It is 6:41. A Westchester County jail inmate who died last weekend after he was punched in the head by another man in custody was 18 years old. Bryce Neville, whose last address in White Plains, was hit on the side of the head and fell to the floor. He was transported to Westchester Medical Center, where he died 2 days later. A department spokesperson didn't confirm the name and age of the alleged assailant, nor would they confirm the involvement of a third inmate in the incident. Criminal charges are pending in that case. We thank LOHUD for that story. In a little while, we'll come back to you with the update on the Oscars. We'll tell you who won Best Picture, Best Director. The big surprise of the night, though, was a movie that, frankly, very few people heard about. You know, they like to do that, or at least in my tiny brain. I'd heard the name. I thought it was like an epidemic, some sort of a movie, but it turned out that it was not. It was actually about a story of a family, not kind of going in and helping another family, but really acting as, interlopers. You'll find out. We'll get to that in a little bit. Right now, it is 6:42, and we're going to take a break for the weather. And this weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.org. MyTuner.com. It is 40 degrees right now, and it is going to get up to about 45, 46 today. Cloudy with periods of light rain. The temperature will be 46 degrees. The wind will be out of the southwest, 10 to 20 miles an hour. Tonight, cloudy skies. Temperatures around 40. As we roll into Tuesday, the temperature will be 46. The wind out of the northeast to the northwest, 5 to 10. Wednesday, sunshine followed by increasing clouds. The high will be 43. Periods of snow changing to rain on Thursday. Why is it changing to rain? Because it's going to get up to 50 degrees. And we really got to move where this music pod is because it's too far away. All righty, let's reset. Welcome once again. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. We are Radio Westchester. Your radio station at the train station in this bottom of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And, wow, I really cut myself pretty good. I'm bleeding. You won't believe how I did it. It's just one of the dumbest things I think I've ever done. We'll be right there. All right, let's look at today's lineup. We're going to cover some of the sports and things of that ilk in a moment. We're going to talk about the Oscars. Of course, we have to talk about the Oscars. But coming up early today, we'll have Vince Russo. He's at 8:20. George Latimer will be with us at, did I say 8:20, 7:20? At 7:35. Jake Schaefer and some sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We have a lot to talk about with him. Pitchers and catches reporting. Also, things changing regarding the baseball. Well, not changing. More news keeps rolling in regarding the scandal there. Hezi Aris joins us at 8:20. He'll be telling us about more corruption in Mount Vernon and about that cop who was arrested for selling city supplies, allegedly, online. And then Bob Cox joins us at 9 o'clock. Welcome to the program. Let's go over the Oscars just a little bit. Let me be sure the phone thing is working. Yeah, it's working fine. It's too far away, though. I got to move it. I have to move it. All righty. Where is it? The Oscars. I don't know how you felt about these awards. Some made sense, some did not. Best Picture, The Parasite. That's the one that we were talking about. And it involves a family. It's a Korean movie. It's a Korean language movie. And it won Best International Movie and Foreign Language Movie, but then it won the Best Movie. This is some of the times now, I'm not saying it doesn't deserve it. I haven't seen it, but if you have, we are going to open up the phones in a minute. I'd like to know a little bit more about it. Could it have been better than Joaquin Phoenix's movie, Joker? I don't know. But anyway, Best Actor, Joaquin Phoenix. If you've seen it, and when I heard this was coming and it was late at night, I managed to get a hold of this and saw it, and it's he did deserve that Oscar. Did not see a lot of the others. Best Actress, Renee Zellweger. Judy didn't see that, but evidently she did a great job. Best Director, Bong Joon-ho, Parasite. Best Supporting Actor, Brad Pitt, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I did not see that either. Best Supporting Actress, Laura Dern, Marriage Story. It's all over my Netflix. Haven't looked at it yet, but good for her. Animated Feature, Toy Story 4. Animated Short Film, Hair Love. Original Screenplay, Parasite, Bong Joon-ho and Jin Won-han. Adapted Screenplay, Jojo Rabbit. Live action short film, The Neighbor's Widow. Let me see what else is worth looking at before we get crazy. Documentary feature, American Factory. Evidently, there's some movie that an automobile movie, Ford, a racing movie, Ford and Ferrari, won some sound, film editing and sound mixing, and visual effects in 1917. Original score for The Joker by Hildur Guðnadóttir. Original song, I'm Gonna Love Me Again, from Rocket Man, and music by Elton John, lyrics by Bernie Taupin. That's probably not their first Oscar. The Rangers won, and they won handily 3-1 last night, but it was out of 6 starts. That new rookie Russian goalie, Shesterkin, is now 5-1. Pitchers and catchers report this week, and everyone, of course, is talking about the Yankees find in Jarrett Cole and the Mets having Dylan Betances, and finally they have a decent bullpen. And I didn't catch the end of it. If you did, tell me. Last night, I couldn't sleep. Watched a little bit of the Knicks on my phone. They were in double overtime when last I heard, but at least they had won 3 in a row, and they haven't won 3 games in a row since 2017. And they have this interim guy who was coaching up here with the Westchester Knicks, Mr. Miller. And boy, he's done a better job than all these big money people that they've had. But again, because it's New York, they probably won't return. Oh, yes, they do have this. They lost 140 to 135. It was a tough double overtime loss. They said, actually, I have to tell you this. I rarely watch basketball, but because I know Mike Miller very, very little bit, I did some pregame shows up with the Westchester Knicks. Great coach, smart guy, really worked the Westchester Knicks hard, and he did a lot of practice even as they were doing shoot-arounds. Really good coach. But yesterday, I could not believe, and please forgive me if you're a basketball fan, you probably know this better than I do, but I did coach basketball in my past life. They had a 6 or 8 point lead with a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in the first overtime. And they turned the ball over 3 or 4 times in a row. And folks, if you know anything about sports, that's just plain stupidity. Guys trying to do it one-on-one. They even had one when they ran out the shot clock. I mean, it's as if someone took what they gave a lobotomy to all 5 guys on the court. I thought the coach was going to be apoplectic, and he kept calling timeout. He kept trying to talk some sense. And by the way, the Rangers' victory was 4-1. Pardon me, but I'm telling you, it was one of the dumbest performances I've ever seen, and that's when I had to go to sleep anyway. But I don't know. Do not know. Now, some of the other things in sports. That XFL, has anyone been watching any of these XFL games? Is it any good? It's this new football league that came out. A couple of other things making news over the weekend that we'll share with you. It is 6:50. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. Actor Robert Conrad died. Interesting guy, good actor. Usually played tough guys on TV, rough and tumble tough guy. He died at the age of 84 over the weekend. And I had to cut out this story. Is there anybody on the planet, with the exception of the Knicks who were on the court last night? And again, you can't blame the coach for that. If I were him, I would have called whoever the GM up and said, really? Really? There wasn't a brain among the 5 guys on the court. But other than the 5 Knicks on the court last night, is there anyone dumber than Pamela Anderson? And I cut out this story over the weekend because of the guys she had weird relationships or I mean, look, don't marry them, okay? You want to keep having these long-term, fine. But she married all these guys, and then she got rid of them. Kid Rock, Anderson was wed to him for 1 year, 2006 to 2007. Tommy Lee, she married him in 95, got rid of him in 98. Brett Michaels, just the main squeeze, but this doesn't end. John Peters, the film producer, got hitched to Anderson in January. They split 12 days later. How do you get married and then you split 12 days later? What kind? She should have been playing for the Knicks last night. Adil Rami, they broke up with the French soccer star last June. Well, they were together 2 years. And then this thing with Julian Assange, this traitor, this double-dealing, backstabbing weasel. A source swears Anderson and Mr. Wiki are just dear friends. Okay, God, I hope he's still in jail. We still can't get to this guy. Somebody's got to get to this guy. You know, since the president doesn't have a high regard for, convention, maybe he can break convention about, assassinations and make this guy exit the planet as soon as possible. a real traitor to the United States. Well, he's not a traitor because he's just a spy for other people and has broken our rules and deserves whatever we can do to him that's not nice. Rick Solomon, the poker player, they wed and divorced twice. Now, I usually don't do pop stuff, but this is like ridiculous stuff. And another story. For those of you who want to see Donald Trump go away, okay, and I'm among them, I admit that, but I got to tell you, what has been allowed to happen with all of these, well, you can protest anything you want. This is the United States. But one of the things that's been happening with all these anti-police protests is that the people who are on the fringes, the people that have no other interests in life, the people that, this is like the opposite, but the same dynamic. We have people who love their country in a blind way, rock themselves in the flag and doesn't know what it means. They do not know what it means. And then there are people who have no idea what America really is, probably thinks that the Constitution is a country in another planet, being even dumber and dumber than that. And yeah, it's the cops. Let's go kill the cops. I mean, for God's sakes. So keep doing stuff like this, folks. Keep running around in these protests against the police. Keep doing the kinds of things that you're doing with the schools and looking the other way when we have all kinds of violence in our schools. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep ambushing. And again, we can't talk to the people that ambush the police because they're just idiots who see all the, it's the cops, they're the enemy. Give some meaning to an otherwise useless life. Okay, go ahead, do it. You'll get Trump back, and you will deserve it. And as far as the Democrats go, and I can't even watch it. I cannot watch their debates. And I'm not even going to get into all the stuff that Trump's doing to get even with people, or how the New York Post writes about how they keep spiking the ball, because I just can't do it anymore. Just can't do it anymore. When it gets a little closer to the election, I will re-engage it. But I'm telling you, it's just ugly here in the U.S. And you know what? There are people who are going to say, and rightfully so, there were stories coming out of all of the economic centers today about how great the job market is in New York. So much so, not New York, just the country, that even in high-level jobs now, that there are firms that are actually asking people that they laid off or people who retired to come back. So give the president his due. Now, there are those who call up and say, Bobby, it has nothing to do with who the president is. Yes, but we give presidents blame and credit no matter what. And the president gets credit for this. So go ahead. Keep creating this alternate reality on the left, and you will bring the president back for another 4 years, as much as he is antithetical to the very Constitution he is, at least in my view, he is sworn to uphold. But it doesn't matter. All righty. Let's see what else we got. There's so much going on in the planet today. And I am going to give just a little bit of a what shall I call it? I don't even want to call it a monologue, but I suspect I probably should. It is 6:56. When I saw that the president fired Vindman and then fired his brother and then took out Sondheim, as a guy who plays sports, still, as a guy who grew up saying, as any kid that grew up in the streets knows, nobody likes a rat. As a person who understands, because I grew up in that kind of a neighborhood, even though I'm not a proponent of it, who understands the nature of the mob, which is to say that if you're a rat, you get shot. And if you get arrested, you should keep your mouth shut. As a person who understands loyalty in a military sense, and this is me we're talking about since it's my monologue, I get that. Particularly in the world of realpolitik, in the world of Machiavellian politics. In fact, it's not a long book. Go out and get the book, The Prince by Machiavelli. And sometimes it's two-part. There's a second book he wrote called The Discourses, which is And when you take the two treatises together, the two books together, it talks about how a king must be loved, but better to be feared. But a king needs to, or a prince, which is the generic for the leader. It's all about power, getting power, holding on to it. Not so much about democracy as such, but how you can leverage all of that to gain power. Even the use of, if you will, pawns, people who you have do your dirty work and then you shoot them. In effect, you get rid of them. About how you deal with the public, how, and it works every time, how a king or a prince must do both things. Read it. Because here's my problem, and I'm going to go backwards now. Machiavellian politics, which really should have more to do in this day and age with international politics, because international politics does not follow, and it is not necessarily, as much as it may claim to be, is not democratic. But here's the rub, folks. The president is doing things that if you are in the mob, if you're in the streets, if you're in the international political realm, if you're in the military and you are sworn to only give me your name, rank, and serial number, this business about traitors must be shot and traitors must be gotten rid of is all true. That's the way the world works. But the thing that has always made America special, it is not the way America works or is supposed to work. That's why we have a whistleblower law. That's why even the Justice of the United States, the Supreme Justice, the number one guy, would not read out the name of the whistleblower. If someone is called by the Senate or the Congress to tell the truth, well, they're supposed to tell the truth. You shouldn't be getting fired for it. So now the president, not really being a political guy, coming out of business, where certainly the Machiavellian rules and the rules of the street do govern. You get even with people that screw you. Now, this is a delicate thing because we've watched Cuomo do it here in New York. I mean, it's only in the last couple of years that assemblymen and we'll be talking with one of them today, assemblymen and senators have gotten a little tougher with him, but he punishes his enemies. He was vicious in running his father's campaigns. But there's a certain line. I don't pretend to know where it is, but I will give President Trump this. President Trump makes no bones about it. He will get even, and he will get even overtly with people he feels screw him or turn on him. To wit, people who he once said or thought would take a bullet for him, like Cohen, a rat. A lot of people will call this program and say that John McCain is a rat. And now Mitt Romney is a rat. And well, here's my point. Jefferson, Hamilton, Adams, Washington, I could go on, all of these men, and there were women behind them, and we don't say enough about that, but all of these men risked their entire lives because out of principle, they were traitors. Out of principle, they defied their king. Out of principle, they formed this country. And what, in my eyes, a president needs to do, and this includes any of the wackadoos in the far left that want to run in the Democratic Party, is we are, as best as possible, committed to playing by the rules as prescribed in the Constitution. And if you're not frightened, even if you love the president, and it's your right to do so, because he's done some good things, and he certainly is more open about his motives than most, you should be concerned when a president calls people in his own country traitors, liars, makes them all out to be enemies, and eviscerates them. That's a dangerous, slippery slope. And I'm not going to proselytize, and I'm not going to preach about what you ought to do or what specifically you should read. But if you get a chance, just take a look at go to the library and start reading about some of the great leaders in world history. And when I say great, I don't mean necessarily those that are moral, although there are some. Do a little bit reading of history. And if you do, and I just suggested, I'm saying, oh, go out and read. You've got jobs and families, and you got the far left to be mad at, and I don't blame you. You got the far right to be mad at. But read a little bit about it. His behavior is frightening. Not everyone who disagrees with the president is a traitor. Not everyone who disagrees with the president or who is compelled because they are summoned to a court or a jury or a courthouse or a senate or a congressional hearing, telling the truth and is what America is all about. And if you want them to lie for the president, and it's clearly a case, or at least not rat him out, there's something insidious and dangerous about that, and that is where the country's headed. All right, it is 7:03. That's my take on things. What is yours? We're going to take calls before our first guest. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141. I got to go all the way over here to do that. But I got to get this fixed. I just have to. We have to take another look at the weather. We'll repeat the headlines for you, and the phones are open, 222-3141. This is Radio Westchester, and the top of the hour is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partner, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And the weather this morning is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, exclusively by them. Voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And it's time to take a look at the weather once again. 43. It's going to get up to about 46 or so today. Nice day ahead if you like the warmth, but a lousy day if you don't like the rain. It's going to be raining lightly off and on right into the evening. Temperatures still in the mid-40s. Tomorrow, more of the same. It'll dry up a little later in the evening, but the temperatures are going to be, again, in the mid-40s. As we get into Wednesday, we'll have a sunny day, but things begin to... Actually, they don't really cool off till Thursday. We go into Thursday, and we will have a touch of snow, but because it's going to get up to about 45, the snow won't stick. But at night, it will be 30 degrees. 914-222-3141. That's the phone number. Welcome to this 7 o'clock hour, and let's take a look once again at who's coming up. We'll talk with Vince Russo at 7:20, George Latimer at 7:35, Jake Schaefer in sports. He will update us at 8 o'clock. At 8:20, Hezi Aris. Tom Abinante will join us at 8:50. And we need more people on the national level, as Abinante is here on the state level. And then Bob Cox at 9 o'clock. Now, the reason I mention Abinante is there was a time when the powers that be here in the Democratic Party in New York were just as afraid of, so this is not a one-sided problem, we're just as afraid of Donald Trump, of Cuomo, as Republicans are now afraid of the president. And how far we go with this, how long this lasts, one only knows. Okay, there we go. We're going to take that first call. And let me put it on. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Bobby. It's Anthony. How are you?
Anthony, what's going on?
Yeah, your little comment, about rats and...
yeah.
First of all, the president, everybody serves at the pleasure of the president.
Yes.
So that goes without saying.
Yes.
But I made this comment to you over the weekend in a text. You had a love fest with the former county executive Spano last week.
Yes, I did.
And you touted Romney as a hero and his conscience and religion and blah, blah.
But one can hope.
When the one Democrat in the House who voted against impeachment sided with the Republicans, it was he's a rat, he's a traitor, we're going to drum him out of the party.
Same dynamic
exists.
He's only
running to save his own butt.
Same dynamic exists. I agree with you.
But yet Romney is a hero.
Anthony, I agree with you, but let's face it, Romney was the guy standing up to the most powerful man in the world. The other guy was, and you're right to state that he too is a hero, but it doesn't make as much news as the man who stands up to the most powerful man in the world. That's all.
Oh, okay. So the man who stands up to the most powerful political party in the world means nothing.
Oh no, it does. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. But the primary one makes
No,
news.
you are disagreeing with me. You tell me there's a difference. I'm telling you there's absolutely no difference.
As for newsworthiness, we have to respectfully disagree. There is a difference. Yes, what you're saying needs to be acknowledged. He is a brave guy too. But let's face it, Trump fire, he can ruin your career. He's the president of the United States.
You honestly, you are so friggin' naive, Bob. I swear to God.
Anthony,
I swear to God.
I'm not disagreeing with you. You're proclaiming equivalence.
Bob, I didn't make my statement yet, Bob.
Hold on,
I did
Anthony.
not make my statement yet.
Anthony, hold on. You're distorting.
Okay?
Just take it. The sound's distorting. Go ahead.
You did not let me make my statement yet before you're trying to start chastising me. Okay? You once believed that a fee wasn't a tax. Now you do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you honestly believe that Romney's a hero? Did you ever look at his record on abortion and how he flip-flopped three times to save his ass politically?
Yes.
Did you ever consider the fact that he's burned by Trump
Yes.
for what happened to the presidential race when he didn't get it?
Yes.
Or when he didn't get the state position?
Yes.
That he was foaming at the mouth?
Yes.
for?
Yes. That he's a hypocrite, that he's
Taking
changed
that-
his mind.
you
I could,
So I just want to understand this. You're taking all of that into consideration, and you're still trying to tell me that Romney's a hero.
yes. It's the same way,
That's
Anthony.
why you're in this.
Anthony.
Why you're the station at the train station.
Anthony, let me explain something. Okay, so you know at least where I come from. I am of the firm belief that hypocrites and ne'er-do-wells can have a moment where they do something that's valuable, where they do something that matters. That's all. I think that's a reason.
You know the old thing. You have to take it from where it comes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I do understand that, and that
Okay.
diminishes him a little bit.
When somebody flipped three times on let's talk about how he had to follow. He quoted that religious quote. 3 times he flipped on abortion to save his own political ass.
Yes, he did.
What happened to it? What happened to his religion?
Yes, he did. But you see, your intent, and I understand it, is to diminish what he did. Maybe it diminishes it, but it doesn't eliminate it. It doesn't say he wasn't a hero. See,
I'm eliminating it. No, Bob. See, you're wrong. I'm not trying to diminish it one iota. He did what he did, just like the Democrat in the House did
Yes.
what they did. My point is to hold him up as a hero based on the own facts in his political and personal career is absolutely ludicrous.
Well, I would say this. Do I think, see, where I disagree with a lot of other people, Anthony, is I think that he was being very calculated. I don't think he had much of a career in his party anyway. And I realized that he probably calculated that he would look good among some people for doing so. But he was the one person that said what a lot of other people were thinking. See, now, I don't call him a total hero. I don't think the president should have been removed from office. And I've said that right along. Okay? I have said that.
There were reports that he told his fellow Republicans that he wasn't going to do that. So if you don't believe that he just jammed it up both the president's and his party's rear end, like I said to you, I got a bridge for sale in Brooklyn.
I'm the one that comes from Brooklyn. You got to give me the one, and you got to give me the Bear Mountain Bridge.
I'll sell you the railroad bridge on Center Avenue that they can't even get repaid. They do it 9 times and it's still got potholes.
This is true. Listen, we're not far off, okay? Believe me. I understand what you're saying. But I've always embraced the idea that people are not absolute human beings. Hypocrites can do good things. And I did get the sense that he was heroic to do it. Yes, and this other guy's heroic to do it. I'm waiting for someone to stand up more briskly to the AOCs and the lunatics that are screwing our schools up, Anthony. I get you. I really do.
Yeah, like Nancy Pelosi didn't rip that up to played you there, right? To play up to them, right?
You know what? I had mixed feelings about that. I'm just being honest. You wouldn't love me if I weren't. I thought it was poor form on her part. But, sooner or later, with the president acting like an oaf, maybe it was time for the Democrats to act more like oafs and not just assemblers. But I tell you what I'm more afraid of, just if I may yield to the senator from Somers a little bit. I am petrified that Sanders or one of these far left people would get elected. Every day I look at
the DNC won't allow it. You already see they changed the rules to let your boy in.
Which one is my Bloomberg? Yes, I didn't realize it was quite that effective, but yes.
So we could decide whether we want to give out free stuff to everybody or whether we want to have our 20-ounce sodas taken away from us.
Well, I hope he doesn't do that kind of stupid stuff, but I'm hopeful that he will play by the rules. Otherwise, I don't know what to do. I'm giving up on I'm finding that democracy is failing.
I have no respect. I have no respect for anybody who says that I'm in this to defeat Donald Trump. He's not in it to win it. He's in it to defeat Donald Trump. You understand what the difference is?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's his commercials are saying.
Well, because that's his,
you
you and I and everybody else who follows politics has to listen to this refrain, as you know, that drives me nuts, which is that's politics. But that's politics. He knows that'll get him traction. I don't know what to do about our system. I really don't.
When Ron did what he did, I will rest my case.
Say again. You said something, and I'm getting a small delay on the phone, so you forgive me. Like I didn't hear you before. Could you repeat that?
And what did you say? It's politics, and I'll say Romney is politics.
Well, yes, his too. Yeah, okay, fair enough. And by the way, you saying that I'm at the train station, you want a train to run me over? You won't want a train to run me over. Besides, I don't reach both wheels.
You're one of the few people I know that could lay down in the tracks and not get hurt.
You could lay right next to me and we both be safe, miserable cretin. All right.
Yeah, but at least my get scraped.
Say that again. You distorted. It's a sound problem.
At least my belly would get scraped. I'd show some signs of being there.
How's your neck?
I'm in a brace right now.
Yeah, still. Huh? All right. Drive careful. I think you're out. I can't tell from the sound. But all right. Thank you for the call. Thanks, Anthony. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. All righty. Anthony's been heard. We probably have time for one more call. Would you like to be heard? 222-3141. 222-3141. And he just sold me a bridge. I bought the Bear Mountain Bridge, and I bought a bridge over North Avenue here in New Rochelle. This is the only radio station at the train station, which Anthony liked to point out. It is 7:15. Again, Vince Russo coming up. We also, excuse me, maybe he willed me to cut my hand today on a freaking knife. All righty, let's take a look at what's coming up. Anyone want to talk about the Oscars? You're certainly welcome to. Did anyone out there see this movie that everybody's talking about? Did anyone see? Because a lot of people don't go to watch these foreign language movies. Although the greatest foreign language movie I ever saw was, and it's based on fact, and it was written by the people who were in the bunker with Adolf Hitler in the closing months of World War II, was Downfall. And although it always troubled me because there were aspects of the movie which showed Hitler as being less than demonic. Only a couple of times. The whole thing, Hitler was absolutely out of his mind in the movie, and it was no credit in any way to Hitler. But because there were a couple of scenes where he was actually nice to people, like his secretary or a dog, there were people for political reasons who didn't want the movie, although it still won Best Foreign Language Film, I believe, but they really were upset that the movie was which we cannot do. In the same way that we open this telephone to people who disagree with us, and we in this country allow all forms of art to express themselves. This was an honest movie, and even despite, and this is coming from someone who's building a radio show about the horrors of the Holocaust. We finally come up with the name came to us finally, Simply Never Again. But as horrible as all that was, that if a movie shows for a brief moment Hitler being nice to his secretary or as getting through life, while 90% of the movie shows him being insane and a horrible human being, which is what he was, people shouldn't be saying, oh, God, don't do a movie that shows him ever nice. No. We are intelligent enough as a species to be able to handle that. But anyway, having said that, the best foreign language, you ever get a chance, go rent it, go watch it. Now, you have to watch subtitles because it's in German. Bruno Ganz plays Hitler. No one will ever, and no one has ever, in my view, done him as well. He becomes Adolf Hitler. Go watch it. You will not be disappointed at all. Again, the movie's called Downfall. Now, if any movie was ever, in fact, that movie would have gotten the Oscar had it not had Hitler petting a dog once and calling his secretary child at another time, and then actually sitting down eating dinner and, not using a pitchfork. So unfortunate that, as it may be. All right, at 7:18, we look ahead. And look ahead we do. Let's see what we have gotten. Any other new news? I still can't believe the Out for Blue Blood. Okay. We've got... do you see this new law that incredibly is totally siding once again with tenants over landlords who risk money and investment? Now, we've said it before and we're going to say it again. Landlords who build structures or who don't take care of their buildings and don't put on the heat should be put in jail. And they should be put in jail the same way anybody else who steals from people. But if the government insists on letting landlords pay for people who don't pay their rent, not evict people who don't pay their rent, and so forth. And it's happened to me. This is first person. They sent me to the heart of bankruptcy. I've lived it. I sat in the court. I sat many, many times in landlord-tenant court in New York City. And if you are, when it comes to that issue, liberal, there is no way you'll go to court and leave with that same. I mean, occasionally the case comes up, the landlord is a miserable human being, and the guy has to go to jail. But that aside, the courts are set up in such a way in New York City that they expect you, the homeowner, to give people free rent. And all I'm saying is this: you want to do that, fine. The minute you bang that gavel and say the person can stay there, we don't care that they're not paying rent, then that moment the city should take up the cost. And that's just the way it ought to be. If you're telling people we don't throw people out on the street in one. I mean, there's due process. All righty. Anyway, that's how I feel about that. So, it is 7:20, which means we should be in touch with our first guest. Please welcome Vince Russo. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Bob.
How are you? Did you?
All right.
What's the matter?
I still got this darn cold. I can't get rid of it.
How do we know you don't have the coronavirus and you're now infecting me over the lines?
I haven't drunk a Corona in...
No. Hey, did you watch any of the Oscars last night?
I didn't. I don't particularly like the whole thing. I think it's a bunch of self-important people patting themselves on the back.
Well, it is. But
when I was younger in the 70s, I used to love to watch it because it seemed like the highlight of the show was all these movie stars trying to compete to see who would wear the least amount of clothing.
What's wrong with you? This is a family show. Would I think like that? Would I behave like that? Would I care about that?
But now it's just a bunch of these yahoos who think that they're all so important and all this stuff that they do. It's entertainment. It's fun, but...
Well, they don't have a host anymore. That makes it a little bit... I don't watch
They don't have a host. How do they do it?
Well, what they have is they use the presenters and a voice... I wouldn't call it a voiceover, but there is a person introducing each of the presenters or each of the acts off camera.
Oh, okay.
And it's much more effective than having someone trying to make us laugh and make the thing go to 2 a.m. But what interested me is they gave them, which was the subject of this little monologue I gave, it must be a great movie, but they gave the best picture to a foreign language film.
Yeah, because it's all this politically correct crap now.
Well, I don't
now
know
it's,
if this was. See, I don't know anything about Parasite.
I don't
I
either.
never heard of it.
But when you listen to some of the critique of the Oscars, it's they didn't give the best director to somebody who's black. They didn't give it to a woman. They did. Well, maybe the pictures, that are being presented, those people didn't direct them. But everything has got to be, all this political correct nonsense. That's another reason why I don't watch it.
Yes, there's truth to that, but I don't know. For all I know, as I mentioned to you, and I think I've recommended that movie to you, that movie should have won Best Picture that year. It did win Best Foreign Language, but if you're going to get that movie was one of the best movies ever about a real life person called Downfall. But again, in this country, it got a little pushback because like I say, in like 2 scenes, it showed Hitler was actually a human being. But
yeah.
Best Actor, though, I don't know if you've, and I have not watched many of the movies that were in play, but I did see the Irishman, which was very good, a little long, but very, very good. And maybe Pesci and maybe not De Niro, Al Pacino were in the running for supporting actor, but so I don't know why Brad Pitt won. But the guy who won Best Actor won it hands down, Joaquin Phoenix, unbelievable. That movie I saw, in fact, where it covered something that needed to be said. I thought it was like another Batman movie or some one of those deals,
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a guy who has some native mental problems, who was in a foster home growing up. His parents beat him and horribly, as we now often read, but he managed to get through it. But then it deals with how the funding cuts in New York City wound up where he couldn't get his medication anymore. He wasn't being hospitalized anymore.
Yeah.
And the way people treated him again and again. And by the end of the movie, it's so subtle, he flips out, shoots talk show host. Incredible acting by Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh.
Really good job. But the rest of it, I don't know. All right, so much about that. Now, I don't know if you heard my monologue earlier, and Anthony and I debating as we often do. But I am very close to feeling that our democracy may not be fixable. And I think the country's either going to have to change the way we do business or democracy is done. And the analogy that I used is we are now using the laws of the street and international politics. We are using those laws and they're being applied by this president. In other words, someone who disagrees with you is a rat. Someone who tells the truth is a rat. And one of my great heroes of all time, it's going to annoy Anthony again, is John Dean. But it was based on that because John Haldeman and Ehrlichman tried to make him the scapegoat. And as we say in the street, no, not F me, F you. But what's your take on this? Do you think the democracy is savable? I do not. Not in its present form. I think not all is lost because
it's hard to tell. I mean, we're certainly not off in the right direction. If you look at the tactics that have been used over the last 4 years, they're the same tactics that all of the world-famous thugs, from history have used. Vilifying the press, making someone a scapegoat, making everybody's problem because of such and such a group, and you see throughout history who those groups were. And anything that they disagree with is fake news, and people are just are buying it, and you look at some of these tragic periods in history and you say, oh, gee whiz, how could the Holocaust have happened? The German people were educated people. They had a fairly stable democracy. How could that have happened? Well, it happens when you get people, in situations where, things aren't going well for them as they were, in the period between World War I, World War II, and you get somebody who's strong, charismatic, comes along and tells them who to blame, and
You know,
that's the result.
well, unfortunately, we're nowhere near the situation that existed then, but the
But
dynamic
the dynamic is
the
definitely
dynamic
the
is the
same.
same. You know that? Do you know it cost $1 billion Reichsmarks, $1 billion, to buy a loaf of bread?
Oh yeah, well the inflation and all of that
Billion.
went out of
There were
control.
31 parties. They were fighting, and everybody built their own. You had the Freikorps, the brown shirts, all of these different groups, the communists, etc. They all had their own little armies in the street. It was chaos. They had anarchy, and the more I read about the way we created a monster there too, because a lot like our far left will do.
Well,
create-
it was very far-sighted after World War II that we didn't continue doing the same thing.
Like the reparations were insane because they had to keep borrowing money, and it's what caused all of their inflation.
Yeah.
They didn't have the money to pay for the reparations, and so then France moved in and took the raw from them. Says, okay, you won't give us our money. We're going to take your oil fields, and, well, at least in that case, coal and other industrial areas. I mean, we almost gave them no choice.
Well, I think they created a situation that was untenable, but you see how they dealt with it. I mean, it was the Jews' fault, huh?
Yeah, sure it was.
And
and the communists and the Masons and the Jesuits.
And gay people and
Yep.
Things like that. I mean, but the whole dynamic is similar to what's going on now, where people are vilified, where people in government who are trying to do a good job, get called various names and stuff like that. And you could see how it's a slippery slope. How it could devolve into something much more evil than it is now. The good news is that we're not in the same dire straits as the German people were, for sure. There's no question about that. But you could see the dynamic. You could see how it works, and you could see how mob mentality works. Where individual people, wouldn't do certain things, but once they get in a mob kind of situation, it takes on a life of its own.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I was in preparing for this show that I've been working on, which we finally gave a name, Never Again, was trying to get a handle on why the Germans felt they needed living space. And, a lot of it was that they wanted to be isolationists, but they had to buy their own food because they had very little agricultural land. And so they wanted to go east, A, to get the land to grow food, and B, because they thought that the Slavs were second-rate people, to have them be the slaves that grew the food and stuff. Very, very interesting dynamic. We don't have any of that here, but they were not ready for democracy. The Weimar Republic did not last very long. They had chaos with democracy, and what we're seeing now in a very limited version of that is the failure of democracy. Because even on the left, we've got people that are running for office trying to figure out how do they hold on to their crazy base and still get or not and get nominated. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, we've got people on the left who are coming up with some ideas that are frankly just too amazing to even contemplate. I mean, they want to do away with ICE. They want to do There was some talk from, I think, Oregon or something, of we don't need the police. All we need to do is pay people, and everybody will...
Oh, did you see that? You see now police are getting shot?
Yeah, well, everybody will be peaceful in there because they'll have enough money. That's why, and we won't need police at all. Like, where do they come up with this stuff?
Well, in the 60s, we were pretty wacky, too. I wasn't, but...
Well, we were wacky, but I mean, it was nothing like this. I mean, I don't know where they think that everything can be free. How is it possible for everything to be free?
Well, somebody's got to earn.
Somebody's got to
money.
pay.
Well, you heard I don't know if you were listening. Did you see what they're doing in New York to landlords and to real estate agents? Why? See, if the government wants landlords to give people free rent, well, then the government ought to pay for it. It's legal robbery, and that's how the system is. That's the left for you.
Yeah.
There's got to be a sweet spot somewhere in the middle.
Well, there have been some situations just recently where police have been attacked, and De Blasio was on TV the other day, and he was saying how deplorable it was, and blah blah blah. Meanwhile, he created this anti-police atmosphere in New York, and he's wondering why you get all these crackpots taking shots at police officers.
What do you make of these protests saying down with the police? No, I mean, I can't. What do you? I don't even know what that's about.
Well, what it's about again is this political correctness, where they think because black people get arrested that people shouldn't be arrested. There was a protest in the subway recently, and I was saying, gee, I wonder what this is all about. I wonder if they're saying we need better service, we need the fare cheaper, and all this. No, they were protesting because the MTA was assigning more police to the subway to make it safer. And all of these people were protesting, we don't want any police here. We want to be able to just jump the turnstiles and go in, and we want to do whatever we want.
Well, I tell you what I want. I want on April 1st, I want the entire middle class not to pay, to get on trains and not pay. That's what they should do. They should get on the subways. Everybody should go through the turnstiles and have a public action to say, if these people don't have to pay, neither do we. Or if you believe that they're economically challenged, then go ahead through the government, give them subway cards. I have no problem with that. But don't look the other way when people are breaking the law. In schools now, and I'll be asking Duffy again tomorrow, and I'll have to say it, there are crimes in schools the schools don't want you to know about. But a crime is a crime is a crime. And
well, you've got situations where people are protesting because they don't like it that black people are getting arrested for committing a crime. Well, if you commit a crime, you get arrested. It doesn't matter if you're what ethnicity you are. And we hear the old bromides. Oh, white people don't get arrested for the same crime. It's ludicrous. I mean, all the police officers that I've ever known, not one of them has said to me, if I see a white guy commit a crime, I just look the other way.
It's 7:35. That means I got to say goodbye to you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
All righty. We have on hold with us, and we're going to get to him in a moment. Oh, I got it. I managed to lock it in. This is getting better. We're going to talk with George Latimer, but first it is 7:35 on the button. Up next, the county executive, George Latimer. He's with us each and every Monday, and I understand today, I think starting at 3 o'clock, there will be free flu shots up in Westchester and a couple of locations. But let's find out from the man himself. Please welcome George Latimer. Good morning, county executive. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good. I'm tired of all the rain, but I guess it's better than snow. And in your job, it's better than snow for sure, I bet.
Well, at some point in time, you need to see some snow if you want those reservoirs ready for the spring. But for the moment, it's still early February, so we're not freaking out yet.
I didn't realize that. We do need that snow upstate to get the reservoirs filled, don't we? I don't think about that enough. All right.
We do. Well, as everything has a complication to it as we learn as we get older in life. Something is an unalloyed good until you realize there's a downside to it. So I'm not dying to see snow. We don't want the overtime and the salt and all that stuff. But by the same token, we need a certain amount of it in order to have the water ready for the springtime drinking season, so to speak.
Okay, I saw your press releases, I guess Friday, again today. The county is giving free flu vaccine shots. Where can people go to do that, county executive, and how was that decision made?
Well, we have public health clinics in White Plains on Court Street and in Yonkers, downtown Yonkers. If you call the county, the general number, 995-2000, and ask for the health department, you'll get connected, and then anybody who wants can get the information. The flu shot is sort of a standard thing. People tend to underestimate its value until you get the flu. and then you don't underestimate its value. And no flu shot is 100% effective. It reduces the likelihood of it, but it doesn't eliminate it in its entirety. And, the public health officials tell us that as much as we're tracking the very serious coronavirus potential, epidemic out there, that flu is common and is just as devastating if it and potentially more devastating if it hits people with compromised immune systems, seniors, children, so forth. So we want to make it available to people so that it doesn't matter whether you have the money or not, that you can get the flu vaccine and you can prevent, to the greater extent possible, getting the flu.
That's a good idea. Now, I know the county's keeping an eye on the coronavirus as well. Is there any concerns or new concerns in terms of our county and any areas of suspicion there?
Well, New York State Department of Health is the superior authority on such matters. They give us direction and we follow. We're prepared if a case breaks out to be able to isolate the individual if they are asymptomatic, meaning if they're not showing symptoms of the disease, to isolate them until we know whether or not they have the disease. And if they do, in fact, have the disease, to get them into an appropriate place for treatment. The outbreak in Wuhan, China, has created an intercept effort where people coming from China are only channeling through 11 airports, JFK being one of them. And then the New York State and the federal health officials will make the determination as to what happens to the individuals who come out of that. And then from there, if that person is a Westchester County resident coming home or coming to Westchester to visit somebody, then we will take the provisions we have to. We have location that can be used for isolation away from the rest of the general population. No one should be cocky about, we're covered, everything is fine. You just can't tell what happens with a communicable disease. Anything can happen. But we've been in constant dialogue. The phone lines were burning up yesterday between Westchester County health officials and New York State health officials, just to make sure that we know what's going on. So our professionals, Dr. Shirley Damler, who is the county's health commissioner, is on top of these issues, and those of us in general management keep an eye on it as well, and hopefully we're as ready as we can be.
7:39, we're talking with County Executive George Latimer here on Radio Westchester Mornings with Bob Marrone. Any update on the negotiations to settle or at least to deal with the Playland matter with Standard Amusements?
Well, we're scheduled to be with the judge on Thursday, and there'll be some meetings this week, no doubt, on the topic. The judge has asked us to come to mutual agreement, and so we're going to do what the judge says. We're not a lawless government. Obviously, there are significant differences between Standard and the county, but now we're being told to work it out. Well, we'll do our best to work it out. Now, that presumes, I think it's fair to say, that Standard at some point in time will be managing Playland. How soon or how far away, we don't know. But I think that's the outcome. I think the judge has been pretty clear in his conversations with us that that's the direction to move in. So basically, the contract that was approved by Rob Astorino will, at some point in time, go into effect.
Oh, well, and that's that. What about the airport? I know you've had several meetings recently. Any news about the flight patterns and some of the complaints regarding the airport?
Well, we've communicated with the FAA since our meeting about 3 weeks ago, which was a productive meeting up in Chappaqua. We have a couple of meetings this week with the environmental advocates, who want to see certain things happen at the airport. I think the key is this, that there is this administration, our administration, has tried very hard to make efforts at the airport. We haven't just ignored it and said, okay, fine, go make as much money as you can and so forth. There are those for whom the noise overhead is a constant concern, but we can't satisfy that concern by taking an important asset and just shutting it down or coming near to shutting it down. And that's the unfortunate reality for those people that do find themselves aggrieved by the noise. On the other hand, we can do things within our authority to maintain some control over the airport so it doesn't expand. And the problem is the definition of expansion varies depending on who you're talking to. Anybody who looks at it says, don't expand the airport, that means don't allow more capacity through the terminal on the commercial side. Don't lengthen the runway. Don't strengthen the runway so you can get bigger planes in. Don't add to the land of the of the airport so that you could build more buildings and additional land. On the other hand, people who are aggrieved by the airport really don't want to see us do anything there, and that is not, it is not expansion to modernize facilities. It is not expansion to, fix the fact that the passenger flow in the terminal, because of the TSA rules, make it a very difficult little airport to go in and out of. And so we're caught between a highly motivated minority of people who feel very aggrieved by the airport with some legitimate grief. But at the same time, a much larger group of people that use the airport either for business or for pleasure, and who find the airport a tremendous asset. It is an asset in economic development. So you've got to balance those two things. And of course, advocates don't want you to balance anything. They want you to do exactly what they tell you to do. So we're trying to handle it as reasonably well as we can. We've been engaged. I think, Bob, we've been engaged on every public policy issue these 2+ years. This Saturday, to change the topic, I drove past the site where the New Rochelle Family Court is going to go up.
Yes.
We went through all the gas in New Rochelle, over Pelham Road, and people making you were on the radio, you've heard it, accusations of deals and double deals.
Oh, God,
none of that turned out to be true. None of it turned out to be true. We were able to finally, and it wasn't easy, negotiate a piece of land in downtown New Rochelle for the court to go. So what it tells you is, if given enough time, this administration, our administration, will try to do its best to rationally deal with problems. But we do so in the political hothouse. And the political hothouse is people, folks who've had very strong positions on the other side of the political spectrum, who don't agree with anything we do because we're Democrats or because of whatever. And they're always looking for the conspiracy theory. They're always looking for, this is the deviousness behind the actual action. And whether it's the New Rochelle Family Court, the airport, Playland, you name it, we have followed a consistent philosophy in something as small as the Miller House, Washington headquarters, or the pools in Sprain Ridge, or reestablishing the CDBG program. We have proven that we can fix things that are broken. But we have to prove it again at New Rochelle Family Court. We have to prove it at the airport. We have to prove it at Playland in order for people to understand this is who we are. This is how we approach these issues. And, you're always put to the test every single day.
Yeah, I guess you get used to it after a while. I know each year, and last year I guess it was in April, when do you do the State of the County address? Is it stated for April this year? Or?
Yes, it's usually our tradition in Westchester to do it in April. I followed the prior tradition in terms of timing. What I did do that changed it from my predecessor is I brought the speech back into the Board of Legislators chambers. What you have at some levels of government in the state and then the county is a desire to go to an external place and make the state of the county message more of a general showtime. You saw, President Trump did that by pointing to people in the gallery and at certain points in the thing, although he did do it inside the House of Representatives. The attitude that I have is to be a traditionalist. Go back before the Board of Legislators, make sure that the speech is heavy on substance about what you intend to do. What is the state of Westchester? What are the ideas and the proposals that you have to put before the legislature? And to do it that way, I've done 2 of them already. I've got one coming up now. I think it's April 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. And, hopefully that'll lay it out. Now, a 4-year term after this year, now with early voting, usually the whole 4th year is going to be consumed by an election race. And, I haven't announced that I'm going to run for re-election. It's been, I think, pretty obvious that, my mind is in that direction. But so next year will be very hard because by the time you get to next year in April, you will most likely have my opponents out there, maybe a primary opponent for all I know. And they will be out there, and if I say apple, they'll say banana and cherry, and that's the way it rolls. So this year, really, for us, is the last opportunity in my term to really lay some things out there without being involved in the heart of an election campaign. So we're going to try our best to lay out some vision in April and execute it through the budget in December. And then because early voting, requires party designations in January and February each year, a year from now, even though it's early February, you will see the campaign season start. It'll start early.
But it always starts early. It seems like it's starting earlier and earlier every year. What kinds of things that you're working on that you want to shout out about?
Well, I think that we had a very good press conference last week where we showed our efforts to try to ensure that we have more electric vehicle charging stations around Westchester County. We did the press conference at the North White Plains Railroad Station, which is owned by Westchester County. That's one of the few parking lots by a train station that's owned by the county, and we put in 10 electrical vehicle charging stations there. And as a backdrop, we offered legislation that would require the county to put electric vehicle charging stations wherever we have parking around the county. Now, some of that's used for county employees, but more of it will be used for the general public, so that if you have an electric vehicle or a hybrid, you start to know the infrastructure of where you can go to get a charge while you're driving around. It's just like those of us, if you drive a regular gasoline-powered car, you start getting low on gas, you want to know where the nearest gas station is. You have a confidence that the infrastructure is there. Well, the same has to be true for electric vehicles, and I think you're going to see more and more people driving electric vehicles in the years to come. So the county can do its share by having as many charging stations available as possible. And, of course, you pay for the charge. This is not free electricity.
Right.
Like anything else, you plug in, you get out your credit card, and you pay for the energy you need. It can be a little bit difficult because, when you pump gas, it can take you 5 minutes and you have enough gas to go. Electric charging takes a certain amount of time to get the battery recharged, so it's not quite the same length of time. That's why having them at a train station are great. Guys can drive up, park the car there for the day, get a full charge. When they come back to the city, hop in the car and go. We're going to put charging stations in at some of our golf courses around the county, Mohansick, Maplemore and White Plains, Dunwoody and Yonkers. And so there are guys who go play around the golf. That's a 4 or 5 hour operation. You park the car, you charge it up, you come back from your round of golf, you get in your car's fully charged. And, and you go off about your day. So hopefully we'll be able to do enough of that. So that was something that we launched. I mentioned some of the other initiatives more recently about the food scrap recycling. We are casting about for a municipal partner where we will set up on Valhalla a compost facility for one municipality. And so I'll take them off the grid. And we'll do it, A, to solve their problem, and B, to show a model for other communities to follow if they have land and they choose to do a compost site. If you take food waste out of the garbage stream, you'll reduce your costs and you'll be environmentally sound by composting rather than by burning as garbage. And that's the thing. This is 20% of our waste stream is food waste. That's a lot of waste.
That's an enormous amount of waste.
Compost.
Coming up on 7:49. Hey, I got a question for you. It's totally personal. But the other day I'm driving up at night, and there are spots. When you come up from you come across the GWB and you come up the Bronx River, and there's a connector in Yonkers where you go on to the cross county, and all the lights are out. Is that the state? Is that Yonkers? Is that the county? Because I almost couldn't see where the hell I was going.
Right. It's the state. The state has control of those parkways. The county owns the Bronx River Parkway at the point that the Sprain and the Bronx River Parkway divide.
I see.
Which is just above what you're talking about.
Right.
When you get on the entrance ramp to the cross county, west or eastbound, that's all still state. And then once you get up to the Bronx River, at that point, which is about Paxton Avenue exit as you're going north, that's the county all the way up to Kensico.
Okay, so any of the lights that are on the roads aren't the local municipality, because it seems to change.
Yeah, they're not the local municipality. They are the state to do that. And we've lobbied for times. When I was a state legislator, you would write the DOT and explain to them the problems that you have. And the state's a big place. They prioritize issues. They have a capital budget that exceeds ours, but they have a hell of a lot more turf to cover. So, we've never found that they've been effectively lighting them. And, what happens is you drive on the New England Thruway, Interstate Highway, Thruway Authority Highway, paid for by your tolls, and it's well lit. And you don't have any sense of darkness or what's happening on the Thruway. Then you get on, one of these other roads, and it's as dark as could be if it's a rainy night. It's hard to see, and I'm driving all the time,
spooky.
so I know
Yeah,
exactly
so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, you know what's cool? I have Abernathy on at 8:50, so I could bother him with this one.
Oh,
Any,
he'll give you a good blast.
oh, we know that.
He'll make sure he lets you know
Hey, do you miss
what
any of that?
he has said.
Do you miss the give and take
I'm
up
sorry?
in Albany at all? Do you miss any of that?
You know, like anything else that you've done in your past, you miss it a little bit because it was, it was a moment in your life. 13 years of a moment. It's about almost a fifth of my life, in which you had a certain set of circumstances. Walking through the Capitol, at the state government, you feel like you're in a very big, important government. The only thing bigger is Washington, D.C., and you do feel like you're dealing with important issues. But back in Westchester, as a county executive, I have more authority and I have more ability to actually complete tasks. So while I miss it in the sense that there are good memories there, whenever I go up and I see people I know and certain issues are compelling issues to debate, I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. And, the issues of the state are big. And I assume Washington is bigger still. So if you go to the Congress, the U.S. Senate, that becomes the story of your life. But for me, where I'm at my life now, 66 years old, I'm very happy to have this opportunity in the county. I served 13 years in the county before I went away for 13 years. And now that I'm doing this, I want to do it well. And I don't look back, and I don't regret, the path that's gotten me here.
Well, hey, I got one for you. It's a baseball thing. I'm going to be asking a guest and my sports guy this. Now, here's something that I thoroughly agree with the president on. He says that he feels that it's time to put Pete Rose into the Baseball Hall of Fame. See, I want him out of baseball. I don't want him to get a job in baseball, but I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. You like these kinds of things, county exec. Where do you weigh in on Pete Rose?
Here's what you need. First of all, Pete Rose, by his statistics, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yep,
but
he does.
He bet on baseball. I don't care if you bet on his team to win. You're not supposed to bet on baseball. Those are the rules.
Right.
And then the second thing is he lied about it for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
He really put up for a long period of time. I didn't do it. And then he comes along and says, yeah, I did it. And because he's got this tough guy persona, there's an element of people out there, and the president and, people of that the philosophy say, yeah, you're just prosecuting Pete Rose. What about this other guy? How about this other guy over here? Pete Rose, if he wants to be in the Hall of Fame during his lifetime, is going to have to come out publicly and make an honest, sincere mea culpa. And he needs to recant what he did. He needs to say, I bet wrongly. I was wrong to do it. And then I lied about it, and I was wrong to lie about it. Now, as he's getting late in his life, he could live a long time, but then again, who knows? And if he wants to see himself in Cooperstown, then he's going to have to come out and come clean. I met Pete Rose once. Look, everybody knows he's a very self-confident guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very cocky guy. He's got a lot of swagger about him. That's why he was good on the field. That's why he had that attitude when he played in the infield before he became a first baseman. And that's who he is. And guys who are cocky with swagger, they don't come out and say, "Look, I'm sorry, I did this. It was really wrong of me." No. They have too much pride to do it. You don't see other people in the public domain coming out saying, "Hey, I was wrong. I was right, and I doubled down on it." Pete Rose, to me, as a baseball fan, he's got to come out. He's got to admit it publicly, clearly, cleanly. I don't think he's done it fully yet. Come out, admit it, be sorry for it, mean it, and then he can go into the Hall of Fame. And by the way, ditto Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds.
Yeah, that's where I stand too, with Bonds and Clemens. Yeah,
same thing. But they've got to come out. Roger Clemens has got to have humility, a big fat piece of humble pie, and Barry Bonds too, and say, because the statistics before they went on the sauce warranted the Hall of Fame. There's no question they deserve by statistics. But if you let Pete, Barry, and Roger Clemens in, then you're saying we know that they cheated, and we exonerate. Now, somebody will say to me, well, you got Ty Cobb in the Hall of Fame. He was a vicious racist. Well, he got in the Hall of Fame before these things became public and understood. So we're not going to go backwards and have an after-the-fact test of people who have died. Ty Cobb was a great player, and he was a miserable human being.
He really was a miserable human being. Ty Cobb was.
Just a vicious, nasty human being. But he got into the Hall of Fame without those things being categorized. You want to have a special, I've been to the Hall of Fame once, you want to have a special little alcove for the Hall of Fame guys who had they were on greenies, or they were, or they did things that were not good to the detriment of the game, then put their plaques in that little.
You'll have more guys in that part of the Hall of Fame than in the main part of the Hall of Fame. I think everybody, what's that thing? If you're not cheating, you're not trying. I think a lot of athletes believe that.
I think a lot of people believe that. I also think a lot of people believe that rules are for sissies. That, if I can break the rule and get away with it, I break the rule and get away with it. You see that in government right now.
Oh, cool.
What's truth? I mean, what's truth? What truth doesn't mean anything. If I can sell you on a lie and you buy it, that's good enough. If I could take a fact and I could twist it, or I could find a different way to describe that fact, if I can drill it into people's heads enough, they'll believe that that's the fact, not the actual fact. And why? Because my philosophy needs to govern this country, not yours. And so everything is fair. All's fair in love and war. This is war. And in the world of baseball, which has this tradition more so than any other sport, hockey's got a lot of tradition too. But when you look at the tradition of baseball is nothing if not this continuous river of a game. It's not the most popular game anymore, but to me, it's still America's pastime.
Yeah, me too.
But it's based on these things. And what happened in 1919 with the Black Sox, that's wrong, and that's part of history. But you can't whitewash it, and you can't say, well, it didn't happen, because it did happen. And why do you want to do that? Because you don't want it to happen again. That's why you have the rules against betting, Pete. And as great as you are, you're not greater than the game. Roger Clemens, you're probably the most dominant pitcher of your time, but you broke the rules, and you've been arrogant about it. Barry Bonds, you set records that we are not going to honor or accept. I mean, we know you're at the top of the list, but we don't accept that as being at the top of the list because you cheated and you don't want to admit you cheated. Now, if Brady Anderson cheated when the year he hit 50 home runs for the Baltimore Orioles, so be it. But Brady Anderson ain't going into the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, you had a Hall of Fame career, and Roger Clemens. And as far as I'm concerned, if you don't come forward, if you don't recant, then you don't get into the Hall in your lifetime. Now, later on, after you're dead, so be it. And after I'm dead, too, because, none of us are going to be around, at some point in time.
Nobody gets out of here alive, although you get out of the show alive. County Executive George Latimer, thank you very, very much. We'll talk to you again next week, sir.
A pleasure.
All right, take care.
A pleasure, Bob.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. All righty, folks. I'm about to be held accountable. Jake, get in the seat of honor. Anthony's joined us. We knew he was on the road. He gets a chance to weigh in on some of these issues and watch me. I don't think I did too good on my picks, but we'll find out. It's time for Jake's Picks of the Week, except in this case, they're Bob's picks. Let's take a quick look at the weather once again. It is, it's 43, actually 43, almost 44 degrees. Going to get up to 45 or 50 today. We've got rain, and we're going to rain off and on throughout the day. Cloudy skies tonight. The temperature will get down to 40. Tomorrow, cloudies, a little bit of rain once again. That will give way in the evening to dry conditions. It'll get up to 46 again. Pretty warm for February. Wednesday, sunshine, followed by increasing clouds, a high of 43 again. The overnight low gets down to 35. Thursday, periods of snow, Anthony. Be careful on the highway. Changing to rain, though. The high will be 50 degrees. It just doesn't want to get cold anymore, but we shall see. In fact, I'm looking at this. Shall I go out to Friday and give you gentlemen a surprise? Mostly sunny. The high 30. It's going to get down to 10 degrees on Friday night. Freeze! I don't know why I'm enjoying that so much. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. I'm being laughed at, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Now, for those of you who like to see me trip, it's time for Jake's Picks of the Week, except Jake has turned it around on me. My hockey picks of the week. Plus, we have some baseball and other things to talk about. And I can't wait to share a basketball story with both of these guys. Anthony popped in to see us. Oh, you can't make it up. Anyway, this top of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Flying Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Remember, the weather always brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. Gentlemen, It's time. We have to unearth the camera now and get our guest, well, actually our regular, and then Anthony stopped in to say hello. Jake's on, but if you want to see Anthony's over there. He stopped in to see us. He has his aforementioned neck brace on. Before we get into Bob's picks of the week, Jake, let me get that up. Speak again.
Good morning.
Oh, good sound check. Anthony, say something.
Well, it's interesting that someone who champions a flip phone now has a bank of iPhones to work from.
Isn't it just a great irony? Talk about hypocrisy. You like that?
Now I understand why you can't get anything right.
I have little arms. All right. I watched, and I almost never watch, but because of this guy Miller, the new coach of and I met him just a couple of times when I was doing pregame shows at the Knicks. Really hardworking guy, and I was rooting for him. So last night couldn't sleep, and I thought I'd watch the end of the Knicks game. They have to be, the 5 starters they have, 5 of the dumbest people that God ever put on the earth. They're like fifth wits. 5 of them, quarter wits. They turned the ball over with a minute left and an 8-point lead, a minute and a half. They turned it over 4 times. They drove to the basket for no reason. Just take a freaking shot twice and didn't score. Then they let the shot clock run out, and another time they got a shot block go the other way, and then they lost in double over. I didn't know they were that dumb. This coach have they always been so stupid in the last couple of years?
I wouldn't say stupid. They're not a very well coached. They're a very selfish team, and the last thing the Knicks want to do now is win. They should collect as many ping pong balls as possible.
Well, no,
for the
they just won
lottery.
3 in a row, first time in 2 years, and they almost won. They would have won last night. No, the guy, he kept calling timeouts. I know he's a good coach. They won more games already than they did all last year, but those are just stupid. I mean, just as one of my dirty little secrets in life is I used to coach industrial league ball. And there's a way to play with a minute and a half left. And you don't charge that basket unless you're trying to get a few. Run the clock down. Run off the clock, and then take a shot. And are they going to win a rebound anytime soon? I'm glad I'm upset enough over everything else. All right.
Was that an industrial league for midgets?
I hate him. He starts the day annoying me, and he comes in. Yes, in fact, I had you scouted for that team, Anthony.
But just they do drive on hopes of getting fouled.
No, but there's no need to do that when you've got an 8-point lead with a minute left.
Yeah, but if they let you into the basket because they don't want to foul you, then
one guy.
Don't get me wrong.
No,
this was an effort in futility last night. I understand that totally, but there is a mindset to driving to the basket.
No. I do know that the other team did that, and it worked. But then they let traveling go. You brought it up last week.
I did. I told you.
Yeah, they let traveling.
There's no such thing as traveling.
You took less steps coming from your car. All right, Jake, hold me accountable. It's time for Bob's hockey picks of the week. A lot of upsets.
It's only a 4-game Friday slate. I didn't get your Saturday or Sunday picks.
Okay, but tell me
You never
how we
texted
did on
them to me.
Friday. Tell me how I did.
You went 2-2. Not bad, I guess, but the most disturbing trend with your picks is on the year.
Disturbing.
On the year, you're 1-6 when it comes to the underdogs. Anyone could pick the Chiefs to beat the Bengals, but that's why you need a point spread involved. So, 1-6 when you're dealing with underdogs, kind of disturbing.
Give me game by game, Weisenheimer.
Well, you lost the Rangers-Sabre game. They lost 3-2 to Buffalo. You won the Leafs-Ducks game 5-4. Jackets, you won again. The favorite Jackets won 2-0. Then you lost when the underdog Wild beat the Stars 3-2.
Do you know I was upset because I liked the Wild? Yeah, I did lose that game. When I saw that, I was annoyed because I wanted to root for them, but the Stars are a better team. The Stars don't give up goals. But
9-7 on the year again.
It could be worse.
Not too bad, but again, it's disturbing that you're only 1-6 when dealing with underdogs.
When I take the underdog. Mm-hmm. But what about with the spread? Or wouldn't have mattered?
Wouldn't have mattered. We need to, if we're gonna involve the spread in the NHL, we need to do some kind of a point or money, involve points or money somehow.
Oh, I'm ready to go.
Give you a certain amount of points.
I'm ready to put my money where my dopey mouth is.
But 9-7 on the year, 1-6 with the underdogs. I spent a lot of time watching the XFL. I couldn't believe
I wanted to
how
ask you,
much
Doug,
I loved it.
Did you
watch
watch?
it at all?
Did you watch it, Anthony? Too?
Yeah, I
All
did.
right, guys, tell me about the XFL. Well, lead this charge. Tell us about it, Jake and Anthony. Comment, please.
Well, I like that everyone on the field except for the referees are mic'd. You hear the
Is that right?
coordinators call the plays in the box. You have
No
the
shoot.
head coach, the players making audibles. You hear everyone's mic'd.
But
And
what
you'll
about
hear-
curses and stuff?
You'll hear the producers actually say, "Now let's watch the language, boys. Let's watch the language," because when they do curse, they have to wipe out all sound. So I'd like that aspect of it. I love the you're not allowed an extra point kick. You're not allowed to kick an extra point. So you have to go for 1 from the 2-yard line. You can go for 2 from the 5-yard line, or you can go for 3 from the 10-yard line, meaning that in a certain drive you could come away with 9 points if you needed the 9.
Wow.
Also, I liked that these guys aren't making all that much money, not nearly as much as their NFL.
Do they make a living?
Well,
What do
each
you know?
team, every game, the winning team gets $100,000 to split amongst the players.
But don't they get sort of a maintenance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, of course they do. They're not playing for free.
$100,000 for 50 players is not a lot of money.
But it's a game per game.
Yeah, but
it's not
still.
just
No, but
win
still.
a few games.
Getting my brains beat out. Anthony, what did you think?
I liked it, to be honest with you. I think the NFL has lost its competitive nature in the sense that we're overprotecting everyone. And I understand the concussions, but you know what? It's a sport, and you know going in that that's a possibility. It's like even like hockey. It is what it is, you know. And if you choose not to take that chance, then you choose not to play that sport.
Now, what about this quarterback? They said, what is he, from Ohio State?
The New York quarterback,
The
McGloin, he's from Penn State.
No, there's some other guy that was. I read.
Oh,
about.
Ohio, the Cordell Jones.
Yeah, Cordell Jones. Did he play in the NFL at all? He never got drafted.
The Bills drafted him, and I think he made 1 start in the NFL.
Oh, okay. So was he a backup for a while?
Yeah.
Now, what about everybody's favorite quarterback who's not a quarterback anymore and playing baseball? How come he's not giving that a shot? What's his face?
Who, Tebow?
Yeah,
Tebow's interested in baseball.
I guess so. Well, I guess he made it all the way to AAA. Why not?
He just got married.
Now, do you guys believe, Anthony knows where I'm going with this. You know, your face betrays you. Do you really think he was that famous and good looking and money? Do you think he really was a virgin until he got married, this guy?
Does it make a difference?
Well, he said that he was. Well,
He got a hell of a following off of it.
I know.
That's his business.
I'd rather
don't care
not
to
have,
think about it.
I'd rather not have the following.
He parlayed it, whether it was one way or both ways.
Parlayed it, okay, but don't play on words here. Okay, Jake, this is for you too, because you were the first person to do it on any airwaves, I think, and you actually held your tongue out of respect. But yesterday, Phil Raisman or Mushnick, one of the commentators, wrote a whole column about, hey, we have to talk honestly about what Kobe Bryant did 17 years ago. It's a part of his legacy. And he wrote a real good piece about it. Are you surprised by the way this has all been handled?
Yeah, like I've said, since day one, in this political climate, I can't believe he's been sainted.
Yeah, and guys that did much less have been, their careers ruined on the right, left, middle, just for an accusation.
But I did like Spike Lee's tuxedo at the Oscars last night.
I saw him from behind.
It was a Kobe Bryant jersey / tuxedo. He designed his tuxedo after Kobe Bryant's jersey.
Oh, he did do that? I didn't see that. Hey, all right, can we talk a little bit about the Oscars and then get back to baseball? Did any of you see any of the movies?
I saw The Irishman. I saw the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I really liked. I'm very interested in seeing Parasite now. I think I saw another one. There's 10 nominees.
Did you see Joker?
I did. That's the one I saw.
He deserved that Oscar. He was extraordinary.
I think Vince had it right in saying that the movie was more the politically correct
Yeah,
choice
that's
than anything else.
But again, I think it's.
And yes, I'm agreeing with Vince.
Oh, well, look at that. Both of you, the other thing you agree on is hating me.
But that's easy.
But yeah, well, it's a national sport. The other thing, though, that I found is that the Parasite I thought it was about a disease or something. Evidently, it's about a poor family that moves in with a rich family and kind of takes over or something like that. But I loved I loved The Irishman, but I didn't think it was the best of all the movies. I thought that Pacino and Pesci could have, if they got the Oscar, wouldn't have bothered me for Best Supporting. Pesci's so understated; he's never done that before. And have you seen the movie yet?
No, but there's almost nothing they do that they don't deserve something for.
No,
at
I know,
this
but
stage.
Pacino was extraordinary. Pacino left it all on the field, as they say, playing Jimmy Hoffa. Although, did either of you guys ever see the HBO movie Hoffa with Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Great movie. Very.
Saw it years ago, yes.
Yeah. In fact, they make better movies. Their movie on John Gotti was a great movie, also with Armand Assante. Just a great. They do some good stuff. All right, I want to go to a couple of other things. Any news on the baseball front in terms of the scandal? It looks like they're trying to put a lid on it now. I think there are other teams involved, and they don't want.
Well,
to
the
go
Red
there.
Sox are going to be punished any day now, probably today or tomorrow. They want to get that behind them before spring training.
Yeah, once they get that out of the way, then it's just a matter of laying low until pitchers and catchers report.
Do they have a? Oh, I love this week because pitchers and catchers report. Do they have a manager yet, Boston? They don't have a manager yet, do they?
I believe they hired a no-name, I thought. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
You hear anything, young
No.
man? Okay, now let's. Does anyone know where Mr. Brady's going? Now, so far you're ahead of yourself. I'm hearing rumors that he's not going to stay in New England, and you think he's going to get a payday, Jake.
Well, I had heard that he might go to the Chargers because they are opening up a new stadium and he might get a piece of ownership of the team. So I think it'd either be that or he stays in New England.
And that's where he grew up, too,
That's
right?
the rumor. Yep, absolutely.
Wow. That would be nice for him to do that. Now, what does that do to his coach and, if you will, his mentor? What happens to him?
We'll see
Does
what
he
his
stay
medal
up there?
truly is.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I still don't understand.
I
what he
never
left
bet
the team.
against him. There's no way. I don't care what the spread is.
And
there's
they
no
got
way.
rid of Garoppolo, the 49ers quarterback, in hopes of Brady staying there. He said he was going to play till he was 45, so we'll see.
Well, it doesn't mean he's going to do it there. All right, let me check my other items in the news. What else have you brought to the table today? What's going on with you, Jake? What sports items are bugging you?
Well, you want to continue with your hockey bloodbath
That's
picks?
right. Oh, but 9-7 is not a bloodbath, and you
Wait,
encourage
let's-
him.
we gotta
But
give
don't
him credit.
encourage him.
It's better than Eli's record.
Like I said, anyone could pick
right,
the
all right.
Chiefs over the Bengals if there's no point
Fine.
spread involved.
No. I mean, you've got me. A team lost their fourth best players and gets 2 shutouts in a row. Coaching matters. Columbia's. All right, I'm ready. Folks, hold on. We need music for this. We need music. Okay. Thanks for stopping in. Take care. All righty. Anthony's leaving. Good. That's the celebratory music. Take care. Good luck at the. All right. It's time for Marrone's Picks of the Week, subbing for Jake's Picks of the Week, brought to you by our friends at Dominic's Fine
I'm going to
Cigars.
pick against you, even though I have
Okay,
no
go
idea
ahead.
what I'm
Okay,
doing.
Go ahead. Well, I'll
And
tell
I have
you
a
what-
feeling I'm going to win.
Go ahead, Jake.
All right. The Capitals are at home against the Islanders. Favored,
How many?
155 to 175.
Ooh, give me the Caps.
I will agree with that.
Okay. Folks, you are hearing genius. Genius!
All right. Canadians at home against the Coyotes. The line is off, so there must be an injury involved in this game.
No, you have two very inconsistent hockey teams. The Canadians, oh gosh, this is killing me. I'm going to go with the Habs. It's Canadians for those of you who don't follow hockey. There's Habitants.
I will go with the Coyotes.
You can't get hurt.
Flyers at home favored against the Panthers, 115 to 135.
Give me the dog. Give me the Cats.
I will take the Flyers. Oh, man. Lightning on the road. The spread is off against the Blue Jackets, who are at home.
Oh, I don't want to root against the Jacks, but I'm going to go with the Lightning.
And I will take the Blue Jackets.
See,
Home
I can't
team.
lose there because I'm a Jacket fan after the Rangers. Love their coach. Go ahead.
Predators on the road favored against the Canucks,
On the road against the Canucks. What's the spread?
105, 115, very low.
I'm going to go with the Canucks.
See, I love the home underdogs. So I will
Didn't
go
I
with
just-
you.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Another home underdog. The Sharks are underdogs at home against the Flames.
Oh, give me the Flames.
I'll take the... since we're not using any point spread, I'll agree with you.
The Sharks have 3 great defensemen and nothing.
See, that's why
Except for Jumbo Joe.
got to figure out a way to do a point spread. All right, we are all locked in.
And tomorrow, folks, the results, the cool thing about hockey is it's every night, and I could be made a fool of. So those are Jake's picks of the week. Now, anything in sports bugging you except the XFL? Can we go back to that a little bit? You really enjoyed the game. Now,
I was shocked. I didn't think I would
are
be
these
so
guys-
excited by it.
Is it better than college?
I think the new rules that they've implemented are so thoughtful that I think the NFL is going to steal a lot of them. Their kickoff idea is great. Should keep
Yeah, what is the kickoff idea? I didn't understand it. I read it. I didn't see it.
players line up at the kicker's way back zone 30.
Right.
His teammates are lined up way ahead of him at the
But they're not allowed
35.
to run right away.
They can't run until the ball has passed them. So it's not as violent a collision. Safety.
And this way, guys will run the ball.
And you get if you kick it into the end zone, it's a penalty. If you kick it out of bounds, it's a penalty. So they want a kickoff, but it's not as violent
gotta
as the
keep it in
NFL.
play.
Yes. A lot of good rules in the NFL. You have to have 2 feet in with a catch. The XFL 1 foot,
So you just like a tag up.
and the clock rules are a bit different. Under 2 minutes, the play clock goes for 5 seconds before the regular clock turns on, so you can save time that way. It makes for a lot of interesting, and I can never understand the math on are they going to go for 1, are they going to go for 2, are they going to go for 3?
They can go for all 3.
Like I said,
go back
there's
to
no kick after a touchdown. You can't kick the ball. So you
Okay.
either go for 1 at the 2-yard line. You line up at the 2-yard line, call a play, go for the 1 extra point. You can go back to the 5-yard line and go for 2, or you can go all the way back to the 10-yard line and go for 3. So if
Okay.
you're down by 9
You
in
can
the
go
NFL, you're dead.
Yeah, you are.
But in this, you got a chance.
That's interesting. Now, is a touchdown still 6
Yes.
points? Okay, so a touchdown is 6 points. What level of play is at a high level? Is it the backs, the line, the quarterback?
Well, all these guys were drafted out of college, so they're close.
Okay.
A lot of them are the New York Guardian quarterback started some games for the Raiders.
Okay.
So these guys are
They can play. Would it be equivalent, do you think, AAA baseball or American Hockey League hockey? Would it be that close? Or maybe
a little bit better.
A little better than that.
Yeah.
So they're NFL guys. Okay. It sounds like
And
it's a lot of
I
fun.
love the replay aspect of it, because in the NFL you have no idea what they're thinking or what's going on. They take the camera, they go right into the replay booth. You have the replay guy mic'd. You see the guy watching the replay, slow motion. You hear him talking. So
Oh, I like. That's why a lot of this stuff, even when stuff goes wrong here. Oh, there's my next guest. No, don't leave yet. When stuff goes wrong here, I kind of include it so people can see what we're doing. That's. I think we're a little ahead of them with that. One last thing about the XFL. How is
And
the
I
play,
think
the
the
play
ratings-
calling must be interesting.
the TV ratings were fantastic.
The play calling must be interesting to actually hear the call down.
Yeah, it's
the
funny
field.
because the coaches have microphones, so the whole world knows what they're doing, but they still have the habit to cover their mouth
Yeah,
while they're making
they're
the
not
plays.
gonna lose
So
that.
you see the guy covering his mouth when he's making the play, but you hear his microphone and you know exactly what the play
Do
is.
the plays make sense
No.
when they're called? Not to you, they don't, because
No.
it's a
Yeah,
code.
but they have an announcer who's played the sport who explains it.
Interesting.
It's if you're a football fan, I would give it a try.
Great spot, Jake. Thank you very much, Jake Schaefer. He's our sports guy, our handicapper, producer. He does a lot of different things. Stay right there. We're going to be with Hezi Aris in a moment as we head towards the bottom of the hour. The bottom of the hour is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and, of course, Jake's Picks. Bob is on the dock these days. Brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. And we go next to the managing editor and the publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. Please welcome Hezi Aris. Good morning, Hezi.
Good morning, Bob. What a great show you got this going.
Interesting stuff. These guys are good. Hey, there was a story today out of one of the mainstream organizations about a cop in, and I know you've been covering all this stuff way ahead of the mainstream press. A police officer selling stuff online that actually belongs to the police department. You know any more about this than what they published today?
Yes, but I don't want to discuss it yet because I have just 2 or 3 more issues that I need to thrash about and to validate. But of course it did happen, and I guess the big thing to recognize is that this particular issue was not found by the Yonkers Police Department. The Yonkers Police Department was informed by the feds that this was taking place.
Interesting.
It's more than interesting. What it says is that all the speculation, maybe for the last 10 years, of what's going on with the Department of Justice, where are the feds? How come they don't understand what's going on? Why are they being held in place? Well, it turns out they're not being held in place because if the feds weren't looking, we wouldn't have found out what this guy did. So it tells you that they are here, which means they had better wise up at the Yonkers Police Department as well as the government because the feds are watching. So now there's no need to speculate. Are they here? They are here because they informed the police department in Yonkers, not the other way around.
That's all interesting.
That is the takeaway. That is really the takeaway. But I'm going to thrash it out in an article. But that will take a few hours to do today.
Well, when you're ready to go with that story,
I'll send it to you when I get it.
Yeah, and when you send it to me,
it'll be ready by tomorrow.
Okay, and maybe we'll bring you back on tomorrow and get an update on it. Now, you have also been working on a story, and I'm never surprised that something is happening in Mount Vernon. Tell us the story that you're working on regarding Mount Vernon, please.
Well, we actually published this story. Initially, I don't work on Saturdays, so Saturday night I was able to write a story about the fact that there was an allegation, or rather an assertion made by the Lisa Copeland, who is the Mount Vernon City Council president, who said that there was a meeting of the City Council, and that at the meeting of the City Council, a woman who is the deputy clerk in Mount Vernon, her name is Lauren Carter, was dismissed from her job.
That is correct.
And but that was not the case. There was no meeting, and Lisa Copeland claimed that there was. So she lied about the fact that it took place, but it didn't take place. And then they ended up locking her out of her responsibilities at work, even though she showed up. And then there was a petition that went about in the city. And I guess that must have stirred Lisa Copeland to get her act together. And so what Lisa did was she called for a special meeting for Friday night. And I didn't learn about that later until Saturday night. So what ended up happening was she called a special meeting, but only 2 members of the city council membership of a total of 5, of which she was one, could show, which is outrageous because the purpose of a city council meeting is so that every member of the city council shows up, discusses the issues, they thrash out one thing or the other, and come to a conclusion, meaning a vote. And it's not supposed to be known in advance which way it's supposed to go, but evidently Lisa Copeland, as a person that she is, she chose the 2 that would agree with her. So her vote plus the 2 others became the majority. And 2 of the people I'd advised her, Ms. Farquharson and Ms. Duarte, that they would not be able to make it. So the big question is, what was the purpose of holding a special meeting on a Friday at the last moment on 7:30 at night on a Friday when you could have easily put together that same meeting on Monday if you were so desperate, or you could have waited till a normal Tuesday when you would have the time when everyone plans for a city council meeting. So it just goes to show you the debauched attitude, the maligning of the truth, the fact that Lisa Copeland is really, really challenged. Her demeanor stinks to high heaven. And I am aghast by the fact that Lisa Copeland is, she's either inept or she's just a manipulator, but most likely, and totally unaware of the city charter. And, that's what these people, they go into office thinking because they look good or they speak well, that they are qualified. They're not qualified. And the fact that this woman did this as the head of the Mount Vernon City Council and did this and lied, first of all, and then there was this big stir, shows you that she's undermining this administration. So forget about the comptroller one way or the other. But here the city council is supposed to act on behalf of the city, about the people. She's not acting with them. What's wrong with her? This is outrageous. I was so hurt by it. I was in shock.
What you were hurt by? See, I'm no longer surprised by things that go on in Mount Vernon, but what I am trying to get my arms around now. Look, I've got enough contacts in the city to know that there are some people that feel that the clerk has not done a terrific job and has had some problems. Fine. But there are ways to go about doing these things properly. Why should they do it in this fashion?
Well, George, that's a point. George, because she's got an agenda, Ms. Copeland. George Brown was known to want to retire.
Right.
He asked and said that he wanted to retire toward the end of February. It's only the 10th of February. If you waited even another 2 weeks, it would be the 24th. It's still February. They should have been able to do that, and that's what they promised him. And now they decided to immediately dismiss it. Now, and then the deputy clerk, Ms. Carter, she was first. They lied about dismissing her because she questioned whether the city council took a vote to dismiss her, and they didn't. And then now they did, and this time they dismissed her and didn't even give her a 2-week advance notice. Isn't that sweet? So again, this is the conduct and demeanor of the head of the city council, and it's wrong.
Now,
and that's it. And even though you and I both know that there have been problems in the past, this is a new administration, and this administration is now being undermined by a city council that can't shoot straight.
Now,
and are not following the standards of the city charter.
Now, one of the things that the city had done, and all of the candidates, when we had them on my old radio station, had said they were all for the city charter revision committee. And we don't hear about that anymore.
But who cares? It doesn't matter, because there was a request for it, but the person, Erickson Lawrence, was an opportunist, because he really at the end wanted to control that whole mechanism. Evidently he failed. He's been a failed politician anyway for a very long time, because he doesn't know how to run a campaign. And he shows up 5 minutes before the campaign and then is gone for another how many years. So that's his problem. Otherwise, he's really quite a brilliant guy. But it was all for him. It had nothing to do with Mount Vernon. So who cares what they planned to do? They didn't follow it up, and they didn't sell it.
I'm just flabbergasted.
Just talk.
Well, forgetting what the former mayor may or may not have done, he used to complain about the city council being renegade all the time. Are we going to go through this all over again, do you think? Or do you think it's something larger? Do you think that we have a lot of people in government in Mount Vernon that really don't understand the way government works?
I think they do understand how government works. They just think that nobody will notice. And that has been the problem in our society overall. whether you look on the national level, whether you look on the state level, whether you look on the local level, even on the county level, these are the issues. And the public is being ostracized by not being informed of what's going on. And you don't have people who are forthright in many different forms of government, and they don't tell you the truth. Why should the truth be hurtful? Either you're on the correct side of the aisle or you're sitting in the wrong place. So
now,
get a new pew, move on.
Has the mayor been heard from regarding this issue at all?
I spoke to the mayor
last
week, and she advised, and she's right, she has nothing to do with the conduct of the city council. She is the executive, meaning she's the mayor. Mm-hmm. Lisa Copeland is the head of the city council. That's the legislative body. One can speculate and conjecture, but there is no credibility that anyone can come up with to point out that even though Lisa Copeland and Sean Patterson Howard, the mayor, have been school buddies since the age of 12, it doesn't mean anything. Just because you were school chums doesn't mean that you're going to undermine government that way. But Lisa Copeland did. Sean Patterson Howard had nothing to do with it. And I believe that Sean Patterson Howard, she says she didn't, and I've got to give her that leeway.
The benefit of
not
the doubt.
Because I'm going to speculate. And it's not a benefit. I can't speculate.
Well, of course
I'm not in the business of speculating. I'm in the business of facts. So if Lisa Copeland was correct, Lisa Copeland, it was said, invoked the mayor's name by claiming that a city council meeting took place. That was erroneous, but it may not have come from Lisa Copeland, but rather a lot of people around Lisa Copeland and others beyond Lisa Copeland that want to create a battle royale between two powerful arms of government. And that's where it's wrong. That's the subterfuge that goes on in a society that has been used to controlling the mechanisms of government and excluding the public interest because they don't invite them in.
Well, when I was
why didn't we have video? Why didn't we have? Remember, there was a deal worked out by Richard Thomas, which he never came through on. He worked out a deal with the internet, an internet company, mm-hmm. and they were supposed to build a studio and this and that. They never built it because he never wanted to follow through. But he had a good game going on. Remember, he said, we will get this thing and everybody will be able to listen and our seniors will be able to get it because they were going to get special prices. Mm-hmm. Never happened. Man just knew how to spit out all kinds of manure from his mouth.
My guest is Hezi Aris, the managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. I meant to tell you look very healthy in your photographs, Hezi. When I was looking at your,
thank you.
When I was reading your piece over the weekend, a name that popped up in the middle of it, and I realized you were reporting conversations among the people involved. Reggie Lafayette. Mm-hmm. Why does he still have his fingers in Mount Vernon? I know he's the party chair there.
Because well, then that's why. Because he is the party chairman. Look, it's a very, very, I don't know what the right term is. Everyone knows everybody
incestuous.
Else. It's incestuous, but you have that in small little communities. You have it in Mount Vernon. You have it in Yonkers. You'll have it in Bronxville. You'll have it in Ossining. You'll have it wherever you look. White Plains, New Rochelle, wherever you want. It makes no difference. Everyone knows everybody else. It's not like they just were born yesterday.
Yeah,
and they've lived there. Even White Plains was formed as a city only in 1905. Mm-hmm. You never can tell. There might even be one or two people who are still alive from that day. Or maybe not, or were born then. So they've been living all along and are still hopefully living today and in a healthy manner. And that's how everyone's connected.
Fascinating. It really is
How
fascinating.
could you not be?
Now the city clerk and the deputy city clerk, are they, as we speak, are they gone? Or has all
Well,
this
they're
kept them in
supposed to
office?
have been dismissed, so I guess they must have gotten a formal letter from the city council based on their meeting that took place on Friday night at 7:30. Even though I don't think that that's legal, because I don't believe that you're permitted to call a meeting only of a potential majority, knowing full well that two people cannot attend, which is the complete city council. There was no illness anywhere. They just could not attend. There was a conflict, and when you're advised only a couple of hours before, you may not be able to attend.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. They could have done it if they wanted to, even on Saturday. They could have done it on Sunday. They could have done it on Monday, and they certainly would have had to do it on Tuesday, because that's the day it's normally scheduled for a meeting. So what was the rush? What's the difference? They put these people on notice in the past, and they were now covering up their failure to do the right thing by the city charter, rules and regulations, and they thought they'd get away with it.
Well, maybe. Well, I guess they didn't, did they? Hey, one of your other stories, and
Not with us around.
No, I know. With one of your other stories, and obviously everybody's covering it. David Tubiolo, how can he switch parties but still be the head of the Republican Party in Yonkers? Tell me about that story.
Well, no, actually, David Tubiolo is the legislator.
Oh, right, his
He's
father
the one
was
that changed party affiliation. It's his father, Justin Tubiolo, who's the head of the Republican Party,
right,
in Yonkers.
Okay,
He's the chairman.
I got it now.
And then it turns out that we only have two members of the Yonkers City Council: the minority leader Michael Breen, and in the 5th district, and we also now have still Anthony Marrone,
right,
who is the member, who's the 6th district councilman.
No, Anthony. Okay.
And we did have, only till a few months ago, we had also on the 3rd district John Rubo,
mm-hmm,
who was a Republican for years and decided to switch affiliation, but he is still regarded as a Republican, even though he now votes exclusively with the Democratic caucus. But even though he changed affiliation, it doesn't go into effect. It doesn't come into effect until November of this year, because it takes that whole time schedule to switch over
mm-hmm,
parties. So whatever the case is, the Anthony Marrone from the 6th district has called for the resignation of Justin Tubiolo from the GOP chairmanship. And also, it was very deceitful, for example, of David, the legislator, to get engaged in the re-election process to run again as a Republican, when I knew even a year ago, and I pointed that out, that he would become a Democrat. And so it's been out there, except that nobody wanted to believe it. Because of the relationship between the son and the father, you would have thought, how would the son go out of his way to insult his father by becoming a renegade to the Republican Party and become a Democrat? And so I think Anthony Marrante's request that Justin Tubiolo, the father, resign, I think is prudent and correct. Either you toe the line of the people you claim whose beliefs you claim to abide by their political standards, or you don't. Now, there's nothing wrong if he wants to leave, no problem. But he can't be heading a party that he doesn't even control.
Why do you think he did it?
Because he knows that his son wouldn't be able to get reelected had he, first of all, had anyone from the Democrats competing against him, and that was one of the issues. David knew that at the end of the day that he wouldn't win reelection as a Republican.
Just incredible.
And that's not his fault necessarily. It's the fault of Doug Colty on the county level. He's the chairman of the county, and it's the fault of Justin Tubiolo, the father on the city side. And there's probably ramifications and residue that has failed to, I guess, keep the Republican brand alive, and that has to do with the president. Because again, it's a cult. It is a cult. The cult is. You can see a cult, for example, in Yonkers.
Oh yes.
It's run by the people that are there. They might lean one time Democrat. They may lean one time Republican. They intersperse their demeanor by their own concept, which is not necessarily Republican or Democrat. And then you've got the same thing, a cult following with the president. Again, you agree, you don't agree. It doesn't make a difference. What is the president is still there, and he's in office, and he runs it. You know, it's a Trump. It's the Trump party, and a lot of people have been lost and are no longer part of the Trumpsters, and others are.
It's also nuts these days. Are you troubled at all by the failure of our democracy to work effectively? Do you think the ship will get righted?
I think that people are getting more and more exasperated by the games that are being played by some of our politicians that are skewed in their conduct, and you see people emboldened by accepting their behavior. You were on the show earlier, and you talk about people who are offended that cops were going to be on MTA wanted to put in more cops in the subway system because they wanted to jump the turnstiles or not pay for it and stuff like that. When you permit people to conduct themselves in a manner that's deleterious to what society had set up, and this was the standard. In other words, there's a turnstile, you got to pay for it in order to get through. Not that you could jump over it. It didn't happen yesterday for the first time. It's been going on for years. And eventually, and you notice, well, you may not take a bus, but I do. I take a bus and trains, and on the bus, a lot of people just walk in. They walk in through the back door, don't pay, or they walk in through the front door and don't pay. And there was a time when your bus drivers said you got to pay, and when they didn't, and they argued with the driver, sometimes they would have cost the driver. That's why now there's a law against that. You can't do that. I think you'll go to jail if you do that,
go to
which
jail.
should have been from the very beginning, because you're hurting people. So the point is, we've allowed things to just happen, and we haven't said anything about it. And one of the problems is that we have this aversion to just call a spade, because we throw in the mix all the other BS. It has nothing to do with your religion, your color, or anything else. If you've got issues because you don't have a job, that's probably the instigator of it all. Well, remember when Garner was selling what they call Lucy's?
Yes.
And he was taken down by the police. Okay, supposedly it was said, if I remember correctly, the police put a chokehold on him, which actually killed him. Okay, now, assuming that that's correct, and it probably was, if I recollect correctly, then the point is that they killed him, and they did so because they didn't use what was advised them to do on how to bring such a person down.
Right.
But the initial reason for it is that he was selling Lucy's in front of establishment,
a business,
which he was told not to do. He was told not to do. He was asked a few times not to do, but he didn't care. Now, does that mean you should be killed in the process? No.
Of course not.
But what it shows you is that the catalyst for these issues are societal issues, because we don't have jobs to employ people. And when you're desperate to make a living, so you sell loosies, meaning loose cigarettes, at whatever they charge, maybe 50 cents for a cigarette or 25, whatever. And that's wrong. Not that it's wrong for him to sell that, but it's wrong that he has no other option in life. And for the same reason that we now make it legal to carry up to 2 ounces of marijuana, and so you don't get arrested for that. And that's because people don't have a way to earn a living. You know, how many jobs are there? We're not creating the jobs to employ people, and that's the problem with our whole economic setup. There are people who do well, and there are a lot of reasons for it. There is racism, there is bigotry, there are all kinds of issues. There's the cost factor. And you know what? At the end of the day, even if you give free college education, you know what? I'm sorry. Even though Westchester County, Westchester's
community college,
where they have the 2-year college, the
Yeah.
community college. You know what? That's going nowhere. That's going nowhere. You go graduate from there. What are you going to do with that degree? The answer is nothing, and it's not going to buy you a job. If you go to Yale, you go to Harvard, you go to Stanford, you go to maybe Iona, you go to Fordham. These places will almost guarantee you a job, because how do you get a job? Because your alumni will give you a job. You know, if you graduate Harvard or Yale or maybe even Iona and Fordham, and you want a job, and they sometimes don't even bother to look at your grades because they don't care. Not because they think you're brilliant, no, and not that they think that you're deficient in any way, because they think that if you got the grades, basically, if you graduated, then you're good to go.
Would you agree that we need more vocational? Would you agree that we need more vocational and trade schools? Why don't we have them?
Because they dropped it a long time ago. There was Alessandra Biaggi, who represents parts of Mount Vernon and the Bronx. She just gave a $1 million grant.
I saw that.
Or was able to get the grant.
Yeah, I saw that in your
to
story.
Bring about the culinary, reinvigorating the culinary program that had languished for many, many years. And I know there was a similar program like that in Yonkers. And the problem is that society thought that the only meal ticket to success was a college degree. And look how many college graduates don't go anywhere.
It's amazing.
They're still living at home. They don't have a job. Whatever they pay them is bupkis. They give them nothing other than kick in the pants and say,
I love the
see ya,
bupkis
have
word.
good luck.
Speaking of,
bupkis is a good word.
Oh, it's a terrific word.
It's a Russian Yiddish word.
My favorite, though, is mensch. Mensch is my favorite.
That's special.
Yeah, that is.
There's not many menches around.
Well, but you know what? That includes you, though. I would call you a mensch, my friend. Well,
I would call you the same.
Well, thank you. Hezi Harris, a great job. Listen, when you have more on that story involving the police department, when we get it, we'll have you right back on the air on our Newsmaker line. Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Hezi Harris, folks,
Have
managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. We are the radio station at the train station. As we come up on 8:50, we'll be hearing from Tom Abenante directly. We've got a few questions for him regarding street lights and things of that nature, trying to come up on the hutch or any number of these different roadways, and sometimes the lights aren't working. What can we do about that? All righty, we're going to take a look at the weather. It is 43 degrees. It's been holding it about that for a while because we can't get any sunshine. It is raining off and on. It'll rain off and on throughout the day, getting up to 45. The temperature, again, even up to 46, they tell us. Tonight, cloudy skies, the temperature getting down to 40. Tomorrow, cloudy, 46 degrees throughout the day. Wednesday, some sunshine, followed by increasing clouds, though, a high of 43. At night, it gets down to 35, still not freezing. Thursday's interesting, periods of snow changing to rain, a high 50, the overnight low 24. And Friday, a very different day. Mostly sunny skies, the high will be 30 degrees. The overnight low, I hope you're ready for this, 10 degrees. All this warm weather goes away. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And the bottom of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And we are getting ready to talk with Tom Abenante, who should be joining us shortly. And my question for him is, so I'm driving up off the GWB, and I get on, I guess it's not the Bronx River at that point. I always get it confused and call it the Bronx River. But it takes you up the coast. It's part of 9A. And then you go through Yonkers as you head into Westchester County, and you have to get off to go in La Crosse County. And on that rather very sharp curve, all the lights are out. And I keep saying, is that because the Yonkers won't pay? Is that because the state won't pay? Is that because the county won't pay? It's hard to know. So sure enough, we'll ask Tom Abenante when he comes on. Now, he's not called in yet, so he may also not be with us. Let's see. Sometimes they send me a text. I'm not hearing from him, so I tell you what, we are going to open up the telephones. 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141. And we have not heard. We're still waiting to hear from that GWB case. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it's apropos of a complaint we make often on this broadcast. And that complaint is, well, that's politics. Well, I'm going to keep bringing this up until the Supreme Court tells us and gives us good news. We have two individuals that worked for Governor Chris Christie over in New Jersey who were convicted, okay, because they gave orders to shut down, not quite shut down, but change the traffic pattern to the GWB so that people for a few days back 3 years ago would be hours late for work and back the traffic up to right into Fort Lee. Because the mayor of Fort Lee, when he and I guess some other Democratic mayors had agreed to endorse the Republican incumbent Governor Chris Christie, for whatever reason he decided not to. So, and the quote is direct. One of the people that was convicted said that, oh, there he is. How did I miss that call? Well, we'll get right back to him. I think this is Mitch, but we will call him back. Let me just get him right now. Oh, God, I hate this system. We got to come up with a better way, and we will, I promise you. All righty. Let's see if he calls back. Anyway, let me get back to this issue. So, she actually sent a memo that said it's time to have some traffic problems in Fort Lee, and so it happened. And I've said this many times, and I'm going to say it again. People could have been on their way to see a loved one. People could have been on their way to a job that they just got. People could have been on their way to, Lord knows, any number of important things. But instead, okay, we're going to try and get that caller on. Stay right there, caller. We'll be with you in a moment. But now the Supreme Court is being asked to accept their appeal on the basis that it's not a crime, we were just playing politics. So not only now when we hear from a political operative or a political scientist on this program, that's politics, no longer is it something that excuses lying. It's now something, and we saw this now even with the Ukraine issue. If it's politics, it's okay. So whether we'll see what the Supreme Court really thinks about that, because if they let these people off the hook, folks, all is lost. Because so long as you're doing it for political reasons or to advance a political objective, and part of that political objective is, well, if I get elected, I believe it's in the best interest of the people, all is lost. Let's go to the telephone. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. Good morning. Hello. Oh, I thought we had him. Guess not. Let's try again. Start call. Can't start call. Searching conversation. I thought we had the caller on the line, but we do not. Alrighty. So anyway, that's my take on that. It's coming up on 8:56. At 9 o'clock, we're going to be talking with Bob Cox. I did really want to try and get this person again, though. I really wanted to get this person on. I do believe it was Mitch, if I understood the number. But, all right. Why would you? You know what? I'm going to do something here. I am going back to the old system and see if we can get this man on the phone, because I recognize the number. Hello? All right. Nobody's there. It's ringing, but nobody's there. Don't know why. Okay. These things happen in the course of doing business, folks. Maybe we should try and call him on the other line. Nope, we can't do that. It is 8:57, coming up on 9 o'clock. We're going to be talking with Bob Cox in just a few minutes. In fact, I'm anxious to ask him his take on the Oscars, his take on the XFL, and things of that nature. He has arrived, and we get to take off the mask as we see Bob Cox getting ready to sit down in the seat of honor. Now, one of the stories we're going to be asking Bob Cox about, if he at all knows, and he usually gets down to the details on these things, was a story we did in the 6 o'clock hour today. Oh, there he is. All righty. We're going to take this call, which is 3 shootings in 24 hours here in New Rochelle. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. Why is this not working? Hello, 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 hello. Nope. We have a problem. All right, we lost that person for whatever reason. So anyway, here's the story, folks, as we get ready for Bob Cox and we go into the top of the hour. New Rochelle police responded to shots fired in 3 different spots over the weekend. The most recent report of shots fired happened Sunday night in the area of Lincoln Avenue. Police didn't have any immediate information. About 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon, a civilian flagged down a police officer on May Street to report shots fired in that area. They didn't have an exact location, but responding officers spoke to 2 people who said they were the targets. Officers chased the suspected shooter into a building in the area, but lost him. Now, the first shooting was actually Friday night around 8:20 in the Heritage Homes. 2 people were shot and taken to Jacoby Medical Center. That's not the kind of story that the powers that be here in Westchester really appreciate, or here in New Rochelle. So we'll find out a little bit about that, hopefully from Bob Cox, and see what else is on his mind. We're going to go to Bob right now as we head to 9 o'clock. Are you ready to go on the air? I moved you up 5 minutes. You can handle it. He is the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008, friend of the radio station, and a person we believe to be one of the top journalists here in Westchester County. He does the heavy lifting that others don't often want to do. Please welcome Bob Cox. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning.
Oh, there you go. Say that again. Sounds
good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you. Hey, you got your Yankee shirt on. Pitchers and catchers.
Coming up.
I wanted to get to you early before we get to hard news. I had 2 issues I wanted to bring up. Did you watch any of the XFL games?
I did not. I just saw a video clip of some guy with no shirt being dragged off the field, and I saw some tight end have his leg broken.
He had his leg. Was it really a bad break? Like, was it crooked or anything?
I don't know. It looked really bad. I didn't actually see. I think I may have saw one play run, but I did hear that the tickets for the Washington team were going for more than the Redskins tickets.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, actually, Jake gave us a good report before, which is why I asked you about it. And he said it was pretty interesting stuff. That's number one. Number 2, did you have any horses in the Oscar race? Did you watch any of the Oscars at all?
Well, I wouldn't say I had any horses, but I had seen Parasite a few months ago.
Was it as good as they say?
And, it's good. I mean, I guess I'm maybe surprised it won an Oscar, but I don't want to give anything away. I think people should see it. I think they're going to want to see it, although you may have to see it on DVD or Netflix or something at this point. I guess they'll probably re-release it in theaters. But, it starts off kind of funny.
Yeah, well, they said it was a dark comedy. Almost.
And then it gets pretty dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But it's beautifully done. That same director has directed other movies, one of which I had seen, which is very good. He's a very good director, and so I would certainly encourage people to go see it. I had the advantage of going to see it when it was
thank
just.
goodness somebody we know did see it.
Well, it was something somebody had recommended to me, several months ago, and so I saw it with zero expectations, no idea what it was even about. So maybe now people will be watching it like, this is the best picture, but I just went in with a blank slate and really enjoyed it. And as a opera lover, there's some good use of opera music.
Is that right? Okay.
In the film, but no, it was very good. I did watch the Academy Awards and felt a little guilty this morning. I had milk in my coffee.
Oh my goodness!
So I'm sure.
Well, that's all the political messages.
I'm sure
that
Joaquin
they're
Phoenix is very disappointed in me.
Well, I thought he did. Did you see his movie? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw Joker.
He was terrific. His acting was great.
Yeah.
What did you think of that movie?
Joker, I
very dark.
but
I
thought it was.
enjoyed it, yeah.
I thought it was pretty intense and interesting, and I would say like enjoyed it in the sense that it's a horrific story.
I enjoyed the acting, but I appreciated the story because untreated mental illness is something that it highlighted.
Yeah, it's obviously not a comic book movie.
No,
at all.
And I did not know that.
It's taking that character's origin story from a whole different perspective, and I'm not sure we ever really got so much of an origin story in the past, because even the Batman that had Heath Ledger as the Joker, he tells all different stories about how he became the Joker. So, but I thought that was good too. There's two movies that won some awards that I didn't see: Little Women and Marriage Story. Neither of those are films that are going to interest me.
No, Marriage Story is all over Netflix, but I haven't seen it.
No. And then I guess the big surprise was, to a certain extent, was The Irishman. Pretty much got shut out.
I really enjoyed The Irishman, and I thought that both Pesci and Pacino, had they gotten a supporting actor, it would have been a good thing. But I understand. I did not see the other one about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so I can't speak.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
I've heard that. I haven't watched it.
I like Quentin Tarantino films. I think I
love his films.
It was a bit disturbing to the people in the industry because it's basically an alternative history of the Sharon Tate murders. And so there's still people in Hollywood who know some of the people that were involved in all of that. But, Charlie Manson makes an appearance, and Squeaky Fromm and other people from
jobs,
but it's it's a very good film.
What about Pitt? Pitt's done some good work that he doesn't get credit for. I've always felt.
Well, my wife is happy as long as as long as he takes his shirt off.
Yeah, everything is fine.
In the movie, she's all for that, and she was very excited to see him on the red carpet. She likes all that kind of stuff.
Did you ever? There's a movie he made. It was a low budget film that he made. In fact, he made it with the guy from The Sopranos, Tony Soprano. James Gandolfini, where he plays a hitman. Low budget film, and he was absolutely terrific. He plays a nasty dude, and it's not something you usually see him do. And Gandolfini has a little more. It's more than a cameo, but he is this really low life killer with all alcoholic. And they were both very good in it. Every once in a while, you catch one of these low-budget films that's really pretty decent. I forget the name of it now, but
well, I did watch a movie the other day that I thought was interesting especially for New Yorkers, because it's a bit, it's basically based on a story of Robert Moses, And
Which one was this?
it's called Motherless Brooklyn.
I've seen the title, but I haven't seen the.
Yeah, so that's Ed Norton is the main character, and he wrote it, and I believe directed it.
Oh yeah,
And-
this is the one where his studio burnt down, or at least the building he was doing that movie in.
Oh, I
yeah,
don't. I
anyway.
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
but
New York Story.
No, but the cast is very good. As
Norton's great.
Well, Ed Norton, but also Bruce Willis and Willem Dafoe and Alec Baldwin, and just Bobby Cannavale, if I can pronounce that correctly.
Yeah, you did.
And just generally very good. I mean, Ed Norton is a very well-respected actor, and so it's not surprising he was able to pull some of his friends in. But it's a good movie. I'm not necessarily saying it's a great movie, but I was watching it and I'm like, suddenly realized like this is the story of Robert Moses. I mean, this is about a guy who's a builder in New York City, and he's running roughshod over everybody, and there's neighborhood associations who are fighting back, and then it became apparent because the main characters, Alec Baldwin's character is Moses Randolph. So I'm like, okay, so now it's definitely Robert Moses. But if you're interested in sort of that New York history stuff, because although it's a movie and it's a fictional account, it's basically, an accurate representation of Robert Moses, who was a notorious racist, who built places that would be inaccessible to black people. And yet, if you listen to his character in the movie, he's meant to be the bad guy, but you're like, he kind of has a point.
Well, that's as you know, any good art to a great extent involves paradox.
Well, I won't give anything away, but Ed Norton is confronted with that dilemma. Like, he actually makes sense to me, but I don't like the way he's going about doing it. And
I'm going to take a shot here. And by the way, I'm talking with Bob Cox. We always do hard news, but I love having these conversations with Bob that are a little outside that. And we talk about some of his interests. As you'll find with a lot of journalists, there's a certain almost Renaissance component to them. A movie I like that a lot of people don't, but people who like that kind of movie do because it was based on a play, Glengarry Glen Ross. I love that movie.
Well, you're dating yourself and me because that's like 25 years old. So
it is, it is, but it has a great cast, and there are lines in that movie, symbol. Getting away from what he may or may not have done, and of course I'm talking about my mind by the 3 hours into the show, I forget names, even though I see their faces. Kevin Spacey, his line "Go to lunch" is famous, and all he did was say "Go to lunch." But the great cameo in that movie was Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, you got Jack Lemmon.
Well, Lemmon was great. You've got all the great. And Bryce, the guy. Did you see The Two Popes?
Yes.
I thought that Bryce, had he gotten the Oscar, I would not have been upset.
Bryce,
thanks. He was so believable as Bergoglio, as Archbishop Bergoglio, and then a Pope. He was terrific.
Yeah, no, I did see it. I was not surprised that it didn't win, being that it's about Catholic popes, and Hollywood is not like a big audience for that.
No,
but in terms of as a Catholic myself, I thought it was interesting because it gave the history of the current pope and his background, and it's not a pleasant story.
No, it's not. What happened back in Argentina and
that he basically betrayed his friends.
Yeah.
And he did some things that were questionable, highly questionable. During the time of the Argentinian crackdown, the military crackdown that occurred there. But the whole sort of debate that went on is interesting.
Between the two is very interesting.
Between the two. And what makes it even more interesting is that big part of that discussion is, how for the current pope, how are we going to have two popes? I mean, some people are going to still want to hear what you have to say. No, I'm going to be completely silent. Going to move up to this summer place I've got. You'll never hear from me again. Well, we just heard from the other pope again recently because they were talking about women becoming priests and things like that, and he is now, and a number of other things, and he's now spoken out about it, issued statements about it, which is contradicting what he promised.
It is
in the movie. But I just thought overall it was a good film.
Well, it's a good, and it was kind of cool just in general.
It's on
To see the two
Netflix,
of
by
them-
the way. So if you
yeah.
have Netflix, you can see it with
to see
on
to
your
see the
TV.
two of them eating pizza, sending out for pizza in the Sistine Chapel. I mean, that's
Well, I like the part where they came out to the crowd.
Yeah.
There was tourists.
yeah.
They were in
They
the
were
back.
shocked. Yeah.
and that really happened because
Yes,
in the
yes.
movie they actually have the real footage
Uh-huh.
of that occurring, and you could just imagine, oh, we're going to go to Italy for the summer. We're going to go stop by. Oh, there's the Pope. There's
Two popes. All right, I guess we should segue out of it. Any other comments about the Oscars and movies before we move on? Something I found out we had in common.
I mean,
about
I
the movie.
I really don't enjoy watching it. The only
Well,
part
I watched one or two pieces.
I
but
mean,
don't
I usually like the monologue, and now they got rid of that. But they did sort of have one because they had Steve Martin and Chris Rock come out, and they were pretty funny. And Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig came out, and they did a very funny, very funny bit. And then Eminem, performed, and he was really, really good. I don't even know that was even announced.
No, I was not aware of that.
Because people seemed genuinely shocked and also really into it.
Yeah.
And he was pretty good. So no, except for the walking thing about the cows and milk and not drinking
Oh,
milk.
good grief.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Christine Wiig looked different to me.
She's all dressed up.
All dressed up and nowhere to go without me. All righty, my guest is Bob Cox, and thank you for that little trip down movie lane. What stories are you working on? What's going on, Robert? And did you at all touch the story that we had in the news today? Three shots fired in one 24-hour period in New Rochelle. Any news on that front?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm not completely confident that those are all actual shooting incidents because there's lots of reports in New Rochelle, on a weekly, monthly basis of shots fired that turns out to be something else. But it sounds like the incident at the Heritage Homes sounds real enough because two people said that they were shot.
Yeah,
they were.
See these holes?
So, I don't really know, but I mean, if people think it's that uncommon to have shootings in New Rochelle, they're not paying attention. I mean, it happens not regularly, but it's not that uncommon.
Frequently enough.
Anyway, the Journal News covered it, and I just linked to their story. I see no reason for me to cover it.
Okay, yeah, it seemed straightforward enough. All right, what's the latest with our wonderful school system, and what's anything new in that regard?
Well, I mean, the first thing I do want to mention, not the school district, is about the armory. So
Yes.
I'll mention that. As some folks may know, there is a grant that was received, two grants actually, that was received by the city, and some matching funds from the city and from Twinings to stabilize the armory.
Yes.
And so I can see as I walk my dog, because now I live near, in downtown. So if you're walking down Main Street, let's say from downtown towards the Armory, towards the McDonald's, you would have seen that they were ripping the roof off.
Yes, I did see that.
And more recently, you would see that they've been putting the roof back on. So I was curious as to what all was happening down there. So I arranged for a tour, and myself and a photographer, Jen Parente, who you know, went down there to take a look at it, and we got a tour from the development office.
And did they take you inside the building?
Yeah.
Is it cleaned up?
Yeah, well, so
When I say cleaned
Jen
up,
took a
debris
lot of
wise. Okay,
pictures,
cool.
and my intent was to publish them over the weekend, but I wanted to get more details about what exactly the timeline was and the money and where it's being spent, and I hadn't heard back yet, from the development office and from Twining, so I'm waiting to hear back from them before I run a story. But Jen took some beautiful photos.
She's a good photographer.
Very good photographer, and and what I really want to do is I want to get some of the before photos and then kind of match them up to the after photos so people can see. But so basically, I could say that there's sort of three things to think about with the armory, right?
Okay.
One is sort of the campus of it, and so the exterior of the building, which is in and of itself fairly large. And everything that's not the armory itself is going to be torn down. So there's some storage sheds and some prefab buildings and things like that. That's all going to be ripped out. Not necessarily part of this project, but it's going to go. So then you're left with the red brick building itself, right? And that can really be divided up into two sections. One is the drill hall. That's like with the curved roof and all that stuff. And then the other part is it's... I don't know what they really call it, but it's where the plant of the building is, like the heater and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But then above it is a couple of floors of I guess they were classrooms, something like that. But I call it more like office space.
What's it going to be?
Well, it's not going to be anything. It's going to be whatever somebody who decides to become the tenant wants it to be. So the purpose of this project is not to rehab the building. They're not putting in new plumbing. They're not putting in new electrical. They're not doing any of that stuff. It's a stabilization project. And so the money that came from the state, which is about a little over $1.5 million, has to be for that purpose. So it's focused on the drill hall. So the first thing they did was they took the floor down to the concrete. So everything that was above the concrete slab of the drill hall has been taken out. And then the next thing was also to take off the roof. There's a metal skeleton of the roof. So that was stripped and then painted black. And now they're layering in the wood slats along the top. It was about 85% complete when I was in there. The sign outside the building says the goal was to finish by February 2020. Their expectation at this point is to be around that. They're pretty close. If you consider February 28th still February 20, then they probably can get that roof done. And then probably sometime around April, maybe they'll have some sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, an unveiling or something. But
how would you describe it in toto? In other words, as you well know, for years people have wanted to save the armory, wanted to repurpose it in different ways. I've often wondered, what does that mean? And has that goal been fulfilled by this?
Well, I mean, first of all, having walked through a lot of the building, I went everywhere in the building except the basement. I wasn't going to go down there. I didn't want to know what was there. But it's an armory. It's a very solidly built building. Yes. So of course it's got a brick facade, but inside it's built like
a B shit house. Oh, I meant to say.
Good thing you censored the word brick. Don't be saying brick, or the FCC will be all over. Okay.
I shoot.
Okay.
Oh, fine.
Well, you said it.
I said it.
So it's very.
I apologize.
Very solidly built building.
Those the beams, I don't know what you call them. Those arches. Those are huge metal.
Yeah. So those were all, the rust was all taken off and they would painted. But I will say this is that I think people will be interested to see the photos because
I'm interested
with the way they did the roof, it's like natural wood. I don't know if they're going to stain it or whatever, but it looks like barrel staves.
That's
and
nice.
It's really pretty space. And I would say that in terms of the value of the project. The purpose of the project is just to get a new roof on it and get rid of any water damage and things like that. Although I didn't really see any water damage. But I think what it does do is you're standing there and you're looking up, right? Then you can sort of imagine things about what the space could be. And so that's what you want, because you want a tenant to come in and go, yeah, we could do this or that. So the other part of the building, is still a mess, but it's something that a month of cleanup couldn't cure, right? Because there's still stuff left over there from when it was actively being used, like cots and some chairs and things
you've got
like
all
that.
What about all that junk behind the armory?
Well, almost all of that is gone.
Is gone.
Yeah. There's a little teeny bit of it left, but most of it's been pulled out of there. But then what you see is there's tons of graffiti all around the back of the building. Of
course, yeah.
Inside the building, there was people getting in that building. There were squatters in there. You can see that there's different, couches in certain places. There's TVs. There's, an odd assortment of things back there because people were living in there. And so that other part of the building, I'm going to call like the office space. I don't know what they technically call it. That's pretty messy, but again, it's you whitewash the walls, you sweep out all the crap that's on the floor, move out all the broken furniture and stuff like that, and it wouldn't take very long to get.
But it is fair enough to say, is it not, that the armory is going to stay? I mean, it's not going to be knocked down. Houses are not going to replace it. The armory is being to some extent restored and is going to stay.
Well,
for some other purpose.
First of all, it's being stabilized,
right?
So I think that's the first step, right? But I guess the one thing I actually worried about the most was that you have that one little road that goes back there, and then you don't really have that much parking back there. But what's going to happen is that it's being integrated into the full, whatever that is, 26-acre plot of land, which goes from basically Mancuso Marina all the way down, to the end of the city yard. So there'll be plenty of parking because it'll all be together. It won't. There won't just be parking just for the armory.
Right.
But when they tear down some of the temporary structures like the sheds and things like that, there'll be plenty of space back there. So, I think that for the right tenant, it could be an interesting space.
What about the long-standing effort to save the armory? Will that end now, or will they be satisfied? The people that have wanted to save the armory?
I guess not, because there's a lawsuit.
But what's the lawsuit intended to achieve?
Theoretically, it's intended to achieve that the city will maintain the building until what's going to be done with it will be determined. But that, in fact, was already in the works at the time the lawsuit was filed. So
isn't it moot then?
I think so. That's why I didn't really cover the lawsuit, because it didn't make any sense to me. I mean, it seemed more of a PR stunt than it did an actual effort to basically stabilize the building and deal with the roof issue and all that kind of stuff. A few $1 million is being put into the building. And like I said, at least the drill hall piece of it, with the new roof, I mean, it looks nice. Now, I want to be clear. I mean, it's still got graffiti and all that kind of stuff, but you have to look past that, I think, and to see what it can become. So like I said, and we'll be publishing some photos this week, and people could take a look for themselves. But, I think people who want to be will be happy with what's happened. If you don't want to be happy about anything happening there except, having it your way, that's a different matter. But, one of the things that certainly has to happen is they need long-term tenants.
Of course.
Because whoever's going to build out that space is going to have to then work out, things like infrastructure stuff like pipes and electrical and drainage and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So you can't.
It's not going to be cheap.
Well, so there's been talk about putting in a restaurant there or something like that. So I don't see how that's going to work, because no restaurant's going to take on the kind of lease and build out costs that is necessary. I mean, you need somebody that's going to do a minimum 30-year lease. Probably the city would want to do a 99-year lease. I mean, basically turn it over to somebody else. Now, from what the veterans have said they wanted, if that was the Veterans Administration and they wanted to use, let's say, that office space to provide services to veterans, I mean, I'm sure every city and I'm sure Twinings would be very happy to have the federal government as the tenant, because they can sign a 99-year lease. Yeah. And, they're not going to run out of money. They can just print more. So, if there's if that could work out, that would be fine. I just, some of these ideas like, that have been floated over the past number of years, they don't really work because, like there was the one about, putting in like a restaurant / farmer's market, all that kind of stuff. So the problem with that is that something that's going to last for decades as a business. Restaurants come and go.
They do come and go. Trust me.
So you really can't be thinking in those terms. You need like corporate or government tenants who can afford to be in there for the long term. But, my focus was on the drill hall. We did go into the rest of the building and see it. I guess my one observation about it was so I had never been in it.
I've been in a few times.
Yeah, I never had been in it. So people say, it's really big. And I would say, well, it's too big not to deal with. It's not tiny. It's not like a 2,000 square foot retail space. But it's not huge like what, say, a department store or some kind of big box retailer would need.
Or as an arena, it would be too small.
Too small.
Yeah.
Too small. And then people said, well, we could put in a theater there, and have it like an art center. And that's one of the ideas the veterans had. You'd have to really know that business because is there demand for that? I mean, you already have the Capitol Theater and you have theaters in New York City. And so where's the demand to...
And you have the one up in Peekskill that's struggling now.
Well, so, I just think the main thing is that the city doesn't want to be in the business of actually operating whatever's in there. They need a long-term tenant, but... my guess is we'll probably end up with something that is not anything what people have been talking about. Somebody's going to come along and, but I could see people that wanted to do, production stuff like video production.
It could be like
film.
a studio, sure.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, as a space, I could see it as in the old days, it'd be like a newsroom, like a big open floor. Could be built out for, like a Wall Street type firm. Because people that need big open spaces to operate their business. But I think probably you'll end up with two different kinds of tenants.
Do you know what has got me in trouble? Not deep trouble, but I've always thought it was a particularly ugly building. People get mad at me when I say that. But, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Well, I mean, it's a box.
Yeah.
Okay,
but an anchor in front of it. But the sentimental value and the historic.
I'm not a sentimentalist, as you probably know.
I figured that out a while back.
Well, I went to University of Chicago as the Austrian School of Economics. I'm like, tear it down and put up something new. But done right, and you that's sort of the point of what this rehabilitation project kind of does, which is that when you see the black painted frame,
it can be made to be more attractive.
Wood paneling on the top, and when you see it, you're like, oh, I could really see this being a cool space.
I'm going to throw in a word that probably, I don't know. I think it does apply, but some will agree, some won't. One of the things about hate is getting what you want doesn't always satisfy. There's been a lot of anger and animosity over the way the city has not fixed the place. And people have been so angry in there wanting the place to be preserved. Now that it has been preserved, are they going to be satisfied?
No, because I think what's probably going to happen is, I think that a big part of the Save Our Armory effort has people who have been involved in it, and I would include myself for a period of time, like the idea of preserving the structure. Just step back from a sort of a development real estate perspective. If you go up to places like Norwalk or you go into parts of New York City, right? They have these really cool rehabbed buildings and neighborhoods, and they're fun, and there's restaurants, and there's bars, and they're really a cool place to be, and people really like them, right? New Rochelle doesn't have that. We don't have a warehouse district. We don't have a downtown that was all these smaller brick buildings with winding little streets that would be really cute and cool places to do that with. There was the Knickerbocker, which was turned into the Lofts, the printing building. you have this, and maybe someone else can mention a couple others, but you have very few of these kind of older buildings to do kind of cool stuff with. So you don't throw that away lightly.
Right.
Because I think there are, and you could see it by when people see the photos, they'll realize. I mean, if you look past the graffiti and you look past the,
Well, you have to.
that and you look at the structure and you look at the new framing that's been, well, not new, but the framing of the metal framing and the repainting and the putting on the wood, you can start to see, well, if we kept going, right? And that's probably an advantage here, is that having gotten a few $1,000,000 put into the building, it makes it that much easier to get the next couple of million, right? So maybe there could be some other projects, some other
nice.
state aid and things like that. But no, I see, because part of it is the idea that the veterans want to control the building, right? So I'm really speaking about Ron Tochi, Veterans Commissioner for Westchester County, has really wanted to control the building and control, basically they want to operate the building. And, that's a whole special skill set of operating a building.
And you
like
got to
that.
have money.
A lot of money,
Yeah.
because the full-blown build-out and rehab is going to be, $10-20 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 7 to 10 million. I thought
At least. So you need somebody there, like I said, who can come in for a long time. Like I said, now if it's possible to convince the Veterans Administration to come in and take a long-term lease on all or part of that space, great. It becomes an active space and so forth. So we'll see. But I mean, no, I don't think the people who've been seeking to control the building so that they can determine how it's used, is going to happen. The most likely scenario is that they're going to find some tenants who can effectively subsidize offering some space or use to the veterans. But we'll see. But at the end of the day, I mean, first and foremost, you need a long-term tenant. And so the Twinings sign that's in front of the building is advertising that they're looking for tenants. And to me, that's the right way to do it. You don't come in and say, okay, we have an idea of who the tenant should be, so we're going to go fix this building. Seems to me you fix the building and you say, anybody interested? And then you look and see who's interested and what they want to do with it. And you want to check, of course, that they have the financing in place to go do that. I will mention, one thing, which is that if Pratt Landing, which is that's what that's all part of, gets developed as envisioned, and there was a hearing Thursday about that development. Nobody came and spoke, but there was a hearing about it. I went. A person from Twinings was there, and a person from the development office was there, but none of us spoke. We just hung out for an hour while they opened and closed the hearing. But
I'm surprised that no one from the veterans showed up or any of the.
Well, I mean, what does that tell you?
They either don't care or they weren't notified.
Well, I mean, that they were willing to have a press conference and they were willing to file a lawsuit, but they weren't willing to show up and actually comment on what's happening with the property through the legal venues that are available to them. I mean, the state is the one that put up most of the money, and that's the people who ran the hearing. So, they didn't come. But, and that's all to be determined. I mean, you're asking me if people are going to be satisfied. No, but I think at the end of the day, are they going to drive what ends up happening? No, I mean, they're not. At the end of the day, you have to have the gold to make the rules, right?
Yeah, you
so
do.
somebody has to have the money. But if the veterans can bring the VA in,
That'd be nice.
well, then that'd be great. They'd be a perfectly appropriate tenant in a lot of different ways. But the biggest way is a sustainable tenant who can afford to be there for 100 years.
9:34. My guest is Bob Cox, our long-form guest here for 1 hour. He's the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. That's all very interesting stuff. What else you working on, young man? I call him young because he's
you know
older
that
than
we've
I am.
had a lot of issues with swastikas in the schools.
Yes.
There's been 20 different incidents. So the board put out a resolution condemning intolerance and hatred in all of its forms, and committing to the education and relationship building required to confront it on the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. So, fine. This is sort of a day late and dollar short. This is because they got criticism for failing to do anything to mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. There was people, basically in the social media world who were commenting on this. And so this is sort of like a mop up on aisle 3. They didn't actually do anything. So they tagged on that it had something to do with a Holocaust Remembrance Day. And
did they ever catch any of the people that did these swastikas, or we won't know because they were minors? Or
no, they're police investigations, but no, nobody's been caught. This is a different issue, but I just want to.
No, I get that. Go ahead.
So the issue has been swastikas, right? So the resolution, if I can just take my glasses off for a second here. The resolution says, I'm whatever you call it, nearsighted. I can't.
You're farsighted in this
case.
Thank
you. I can't. So I can see close up, whatever that is. Yeah, I can't see far away. I can't see what town we're in on that train sign, but I can tell you. I can read this. So, in recent years, national tensions have escalated and many groups targeted in deplorable ways, such as African American, Latinx, LGBTQ, Jewish, and Muslim communities, have been exposed to increased vitriol, hatred, and intolerance. So, it's a blanket statement. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's already the board's policy that they're opposed to any kind of hatred or intolerance against any
I should
group.
think.
And so it seems a bit weak to me, right? I mean, the issue that you have is 20 swastikas.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else they're referring to here exactly, but there is a definite issue with anti-Semitism in the schools. And so to rattle off every possible group of people and say we're generally against all of it is, really like saying I'm not specifically going to talk about the anti-Semitism.
Well, it's kind of like timid in the sense that they don't want somebody saying, "What about us?"
Well, but again, I mean, the issue for the last 2 years has been anti-Semitism,
I agree
and
with you.
actual
Yeah.
swastikas and language that's been used that's been, anti-Semitic. And so this is, basically a workaround, okay? Because the district already has a policy about discrimination and hate and tolerance for all groups. So the question is, are you going to address what's actually happening, or are you going to try to basically muddy the water by
used a
saying
shotgun
we're against any intolerance against anybody and everything? Now, as far as getting to the bottom of what's been happening, so the reason that we don't know who's making these swastikas, the reason that we don't know who's been pulling fire alarms at the high school, the reason we don't know about the sexual assaults that have been occurring in the high school is because we don't have enough security. We don't have enough CCTV cameras, something that's been recommended for at least a decade. Okay. And so one of my questions would be, where exactly are these incidents occurring? Where are the fire alarms? Where are the swastikas? Where are these sexual assaults occurring? The New York City Police Department has for years used CompStat, and Pat Carroll brought that to New Rochelle so we could look and see where crimes are occurring, when crimes are occurring.
Tell us a little more about CompStat.
Well, it's just basically taking all the data about individual incidents and then effectively sort of like a Google map, mapping out.
So we have that.
Well, we don't have it at the high school. We don't have it in our school system.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. But I mean, to me, I would say, show me a map of the high school. Show me where each of these sexual assaults occurred. Show me where these fire alarm pulls occurred. Show me where these swastikas occurred. And then take a look at that, okay? Because we already know, and it's complained about long and loud by people up at the high school, they don't have sufficient camera coverage. They don't have cameras in the classrooms. They don't have cameras in the stairwells. And there's some hallways that don't have cameras, or they don't have the entire hallway covered by cameras. There's some issues with exterior cameras. Other schools have no exterior cameras. So in this day and age, cameras are so cheap, they can be set up even through wireless technology. So you don't even need to run physical wires anymore. There's no reason that every square foot of our schools shouldn't be blanketed by cameras, except where you're legally not allowed to have them, maybe a bathroom or a locker room. Right. But then I would have guards at those locations. But it shouldn't be possible that you can rape a student in high school and nobody knows about it until the DA decides to prosecute or until the victim comes forward a couple of days later. There should never, ever be a fire alarm pull that they don't know who did it, because every one of those fire alarms is a stationary object that you can train a camera onto.
How much, and I know this is a talk show, and during the talk segment, we're not governed by we get to speculate.
You even get to say bad words.
Well, I screwed up before. I'm going to hear about this, folks, but we get
just
to
don't
speculate.
Ever use the B word on Bob's air.
Oh no!
Brick. Don't use the.
All right.
Don't use the B word.
That was
B word is banned.
That was funny. We'll talk about that later. So it's a talk show, and so we can speculate and think out loud. And I realize this is not news when I say this, but whenever I see something like this, I get the sense, that's because they don't want people to know, or they don't want to have to be accountable for it. That's just my speculation, and it seems like a fair speculation. Because one of the things that I've seen that's been consistent in government, school districts particularly, not just here in New Rochelle, is that, and I talk about this with a former investigator and now defense lawyer, Mike Tuffy, there are crimes committed in schools, and schools don't want them to be crimes. They don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's disingenuous, and I also think it's dangerous.
Yeah, so... there has historically been advice from the district's outside counsel to never disclose anything about anything. Don't ever call the police. Don't create any kind of paper trail. Now, there are certain things that they have to have.
Why would counsel do that?
Because
for these
of
very reasons.
Liability, negative PR. They just don't want it to be out there. They want to keep all this a secret. And New Rochelle is not unique. I
understand that.
But let me finish my point. They're not unique in the following. Okay, the people in the community don't want to know. The PTA doesn't want to know. The realtors don't want to know. The people in City Hall, the development office, the mayor, they don't want to know. They don't want to know. Nobody wants to know. Okay, so people are quite content to just let it be all swept under the rug. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's one of the main reasons that for 12 years now, people have been angry with me in the city. Number one reason, there's a lot of reasons to be angry with me, I suppose, but the number one reason is that I am giving the city a bad reputation. I'm giving the school district a bad reputation. If it wasn't for me, we wouldn't have heard about A, B, and C. There wouldn't be all these news stories about swastikas. We wouldn't know about, some serious crimes that were committed in the school. We wouldn't know about all the waste, fraud, and abuse, the kickbacks, the bribery. Nobody would have gone to jail. All this bad publicity is being created by my reporting about it. They don't seem concerned about the fact that whether I reported it or not, it happened.
Well, that's what I was just going to get to. If we just take the simple, although wound up being a profound issue, of not truly managing what was supposed to be a closed campus and the dishonesty about that, someone might not be dead today.
I think we're being, that's a delayed censor on the B word.
It's a garbage joke.
Yeah, one of those 5-second delays.
Remember, we're at a train station here. I don't need to do that. Anyway, yeah, garbage truck's trying to get by, but what he was doing over here is another matter.
Well, the show's live. You know that.
But this is coming to you
middle of
live,
the city.
not on film.
So there's this desire not to know, and people get really angry, and they don't want to believe it. So, I report on this stuff, and then I get people emailing me or posting on social media, and they're screaming and yelling and calling me names, and
But their reasons are wrong-headed. I mean, if you were making stuff up, if you were just being, if they want to yell and scream that, geez, I know there's a rule against giving a gift, but come on. Well, one, you're right. But number two, I see their point. But I don't agree with it. But on the other hand, when you're uncovering corruption, when you're uncovering racism, when you're uncovering crime, when you're uncovering things that bring danger to our kids, I don't see any basis for criticism there.
Well, it's funny because you just did it yourself.
Well, yes.
No, because you just said that you don't see the point about the alcohol.
No,
thing.
I said I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
But I see why they would at least, I could see their
but
mentality.
didn't you just say yourself that you think that that's a silly law?
No, I'm not saying that. I could see why someone might feel that way.
But
that
you agreed just a second ago.
What I'm saying to you is I could see why they would complain.
Well, no, but you didn't say that. You said both. You said that, and you also said that you thought personally that the law should be changed.
I do think they should amend the law. But
right.
that's separate.
But
let
me go back.
No, but this other stuff, Bob, even that, okay, and I'm willing to give way on that. But what I'm saying is I could see someone saying, gee, why don't they change that law for gifts? But when you write that so-and-so is stealing money from the grounds crew, I'm making this up now, and the kinds of things that went on with the transportation. No, what's to be angry at you about or even question?
Well, I mean, my point is it's all about whose ox is getting gored. So if somebody doesn't see why something should not be allowed, they're going to be upset if I point it out, whether it's alcohol in the schools or whether it's fundraising or whether it's political activity by teachers, or it's a whole range of things, okay? Even stuff that I reported on about use of district equipment for private purposes, stuff like that, people getting overtime that they're not actually working for. There's always been people willing to justify it.
How?
Simple. We're not paid enough. This is a past practice. We've always been allowed to use these vehicles for other things. There's always somebody who's willing to rationalize anything. And
what about not following the closed campus? How did they rationalize that?
Well, they did rationalize it. You were there. That's an outdated law, that these kids are old enough that they should be able to decide where they want to go.
But somebody's dead.
I'm just telling you what the justification was, because I was bringing that up for 2 years, okay, before Valerie Schwab was murdered. And at the press conference, they were still offering that justification, that this was a law that went back to 1988, and it hadn't been enforced since even before Reggie Richardson, the then current principal, had been there, which was absolutely untrue. But again, it's, you had a guest on earlier, Hezi, who talked about the fact that people who are in power lie all the time. Mm-hmm. They're lying to protect themselves from criticism. They're lying to protect their friends. They're lying because they're lazy or they're not getting things done. But there's this idea somehow that people in power are just going to tell the truth, especially when it comes to the school district. And the point I was trying to get to earlier was, there's all these people who don't want it to be true, okay? And they're people who own property here, operate businesses here, bought a home here, have their kids. The people who are exploiting that, they're not from here. They're not from here.
They're from
Brian
outside.
Osborne, not from here.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Richardson, not from here. Laura Fayhew, not from here. Diane Massimo before her. Jeff Korstoff, not from here. Joe Sarvaggi, he's not from here. These people aren't from here. This is a job for them. This is not their life. This is not where all of their money is tied up. This is not where they operate a business. Mm-hmm. This is not where their kids go to school. Okay? It's a job. Okay? And they're going to, say what they have to say to then go on to the next job. I mean, we heard speeches by past superintendents. So Dr. Parvey was interim superintendent. She would make speeches about how much she loves New Rochelle and she this and that. No, she's gone. She came, she went. She came from North Carolina. She's up in Connecticut. Psh, she passed on through. Okay. Brian Osborne came over from New Jersey, came here for a couple of years, said how much he loved New Rochelle, he cared about New Rochelle. He was gone. Dr. Fayho, she comes in from New York City, and guess what? She's going to be gone. Okay? I don't know when she's going to be gone, but she's going to be gone. These are not people who have anything invested in the New Rochelle community.
Now, this then reverts to the board.
But my point is that the rest of the community does. Obviously, the whole community does, right? And this is what I would say to the PTA moms and to the real estate industry and the Democrats in this town who basically control the school board, to get to your point, is that to base your ideas about what's happening with, say, the school district on the fact that the people that are running it, superintendent and other people under them, are telling you, trust me. Realize that these are people who are here for a few years and then they're gone. They have nothing really. Their goal is basically to make it as easy as possible for themselves. So they can sit there and talk all day long and give speeches about how much they love New Rochelle. They don't want to be anywhere else other than New Rochelle, that this was their life's dream to be in New Rochelle, whatever they want to say. That is absolute baloney.
Is it feasible and practical to have someone who lives in this city be the superintendent? I mean, surely there must be talent. It's a question that comes to mind.
Yeah, but that's a whole different issue, because it doesn't matter that people don't live here. Okay, you want to get the best talent you can. Yes. Okay, and New Rochelle does not exactly have a monopoly on talent. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's plenty of places you can pull people from. That's not my point. My point is the people who live here are treating those people as if they actually have something invested in this community, when they don't. If your kids don't go here, you don't own property here, you don't run a business here, then what are you? You're a mercenary. Mm-hmm. Dr. Fayho is a mercenary. Brian Osborne's a mercenary. Reggie, they're all mercenaries. They're coming in, they're getting paid, they're going. When they retire, they're not retiring to New Rochelle. They're not going to set up shop in New Rochelle. They're coming and they're going. I'm not blaming them, because we want to get the best talent that we can wherever we can find it. I'm blaming the people that live here, that treat it as if they have that commitment. They need to see through the fact that these people are not inclined to tell them the truth, okay? And their goal is just to make things as easy as possible. And the one way to do that is to turn the New Rochelle community against each other, right? So people who are attacking me, and I'm not even talking about recently, I'm talking about 10 years ago.
Of course.
They were being encouraged to do that by a superintendent from Long Island. Now, my wife works for the school district. Mm-hmm. I've got, at the time, 4 kids in the school district. I have a house in this school district. He has got more of a commitment to New Rochelle than I do?
No,
of course not. But yet he's putting that out there and people are accepting it. So I think that the community needs to realize that the people that they're listening to in the school district, okay, the administration, they have no vested interest in the outcomes, okay, except that it's a check mark on their resume. And by the way, I can bring up a last point that I wanted to bring up. We're going to see what happens about this, but there was a resolution that was brought up at the last school board meeting last week. And it basically said that the school business official would have the ability to sign off on change orders on construction up to $35,000 without getting prior board approval. Mm-hmm. Now, it's always been you need board approval. And the argument has been, well, it delays getting the approval, and then the construction companies refuse to work until the board has actually approved it. And so this is going to expedite the process. We don't want to be holding up construction because we're waiting for the board to meet and approve something that we know they're going to approve. Mm-hmm. That's basically the idea. So that's a problem on multiple levels. Okay.
Sure.
Now, I checked around. It is not unheard of that that sort of authority would be granted to a school business official. From what I understand, it's not. We're not the only ones who would have ever considered doing it. My issue is, number one, there's no proven need for this. Just think about it. Okay, the longest period of time during the year that a change order would be waiting to be approved by the school board would be a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the big deal? By the way, I should probably explain. So those who don't know, right, it's change order, right? So change order is the idea that you have bid out construction work.
Right.
You're going to redo, a roof. And when you get up there to look at the roof, you realize, gee, you know what? We also had to fix the chimney.
Right. You need a change.
I mean, not quite right, but we have to use a slightly different material, or we
Right.
have to do more work to rip out what's there. So somehow what was originally contracted for has to be modified.
Classic change order.
Okay, so in the packet of resolutions, there was a bunch of change orders that the board had to approve, just like as the normal policy. Almost all of them were for under $1,000. So this justification for $35,000 doesn't make any sense. Also, it's a matter of 3 weeks at the most, and so on average, it's a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question I asked was, well, how many times did a construction company refuse to do work because the change order hadn't been approved by the board? 0. So this is one of these classic solutions looking for a problem. Here's my issue with it. We are just coming off 3.5 decades of fraud and corruption. There's people who've been convicted of felonies. The one guy I just reported just got out of jail after a couple years in prison, federal prison. We have a track record of massive waste, fraud, and abuse that was systemic, involving millions and millions and millions of dollars. Okay, the reason we had to bond for $106.5 million was to basically undo the damage that was done by the previous 3 decades of neglect during this period of waste, fraud, and abuse. So given New Rochelle's recent history, okay, why would we want to give anybody the authority to approve up to $35,000 at a time to a construction company? Because it's not a comment on anybody in the current position. I work with them. I have a total respect for the people that I know, like Carl Thurnow. I don't have any reason to doubt Dr. Fayho or the school business official, Greg Kern. But I don't know who's going to be there tomorrow. And we don't make policies based on personality.
Based on personalities. You
right?
make them.
So you're now green-lighting this. Well, I would tell you, if John Gallagher, the guy from Aramark, and John Quinn, who is Greg Kern's predecessor, had this kind of authority, they would have been off to the races.
Whose idea was it to grant this authority?
Well, there was
Where
no
does it
there
go?
was no discussion of it.
Do we know what the genesis of this is?
There was no discussion of it. There was no discussion at the board meeting, and more importantly, I'm a member of the Health and Safety Committee. We actually review change orders. We discuss change orders. Nobody has ever brought it up at one of our meetings that this is an issue.
Man, I worked at Merrill Lynch, and I had a pretty big job, and anything over 10 grand, I had to get another signature.
Well, all I know is that if somebody wants to justify that this is a problem, I'm happy to listen. But as somebody who's been actually on a committee that has oversight responsibility for the constructions that's been going on since 2016 now, so going on 4 years, there hasn't been a single peep from anybody this is an issue. So I'm just very nervous that we're now going to put in place a policy that 5 years down the road will be let's put it this way, the way in which the next big fraud from facilities occurs.
Could be from that. Yeah.
It will be from this.
Now what, before you go, what can the public do? We know what you've done as a journalist. What can they do to have this policy reviewed or second guessed?
Well, there is a discussion that's occurring. I've made my views known. I'm waiting to get what I did push back during the meeting. In fact, and the resolution where it was on in the agenda was pulled. It was tabled.
Because don't they, again, I'm going back to my own background. Usually you have to have your auditors as well approve this kind of a policy change.
Well, I brought up I would like to hear what the auditors have to
Yeah.
say. I'd like to hear what the state comptroller has to say. I'd like to hear what your attorneys have to say. But more importantly, and I've asked for this, I'd like to see a list of all the change orders since 2016 when the construction began and a dollar amount, the date that it came in, and the date of the next board meeting, and how many of those resulted in construction being stopped because it wasn't approved in a timely manner by the board. I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be it's never happened. If it's never happened, then why are we doing this?
Okay. Keep doing what you're doing, Bob Cox. Managing editor, publisher, Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. And for those of you joining more recently, the conversations here in New Rochelle, particularly this program, now you know why he is considered the source since 2008. Thank you very much, Bob. All right, that's pretty much it for today. We have some people to thank, and we will thank them now. Vince Russo, George Latimer, Jake Schaefer, Andy, Mr. Galetta stopped by, helped us out with the XFL conversation. Hezi Aris, Tom Abinante couldn't make it today, and of course, Bob Cox. We want to thank United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. Now, tomorrow we will be talking with, of course, Mike Edelman, but more importantly, tomorrow, Mike Duffy will be talking about crime in schools and how schools don't have to report it or don't report it. And what is a crime, not a crime? We'll be talking with him about that, and of course, some of the things that have been emanating from Washington and more recently out of New York State. And we'll also talk with him about this war on the police. My goodness gracious. A lot more also tomorrow. Tuesday's a big day around these parts. I'm Bob Marrone. Thank you so much for listening. This is Radio Westchester. And remember, this is Mornings with Bob Marrone. That's the show. We're available on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. If you go to MyTuner Radio, you can click on Mornings with Bob Marrone or RadioWestchester.com. That's pretty much it for today, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for listening.